We'll call the meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Present. All right. Can we have a motion relative to approval of minutes?
Also move the minutes.
Any second?
Second.
Any revisions? Okay.
Page 11. Down at the bottom, board action, or is motion for the Space Needle. It was a 71.80.
That's correct.
Myself the same. That's not me.
Any other corrections? Motion is as corrected. And second? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Public comments. Do we have any public that would like to make comments as a precursor to the meeting?
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. About 2, maybe 3 years ago, there was a discussion about the kiosks. We used to have about 6 CRA kiosks in the area, 2 on the boardwalk, 1 in front of the Ocean Center, 2 on Main Street. I think you only have 2 left. You were supposed to get a report back on the kiosk, and what they did was they listed the businesses that were available, what was going on in the area, et cetera. I think you may want to ask where that's gone and whatnot. Secondly, if you see before you a map, I brought before you a while ago. I don't have enough copies. I was going to get more, but I was told they belonged to Jason and staff wouldn't give them to me, so these are the only ones I could acquire. But these are for downtown. They've had 2 in the past. This is their 3rd one. Ormond had a great one from before. Downtown has had 2. This is their 3rd one. I would ask you to look at this. It's very bright. It's relatively inexpensive. It's something at least the tourists that are walking around have something in their hand to know what we've got available on A1A and on Main Street.
John, it's my understanding this is actually prepared by city staff.
I was told it was prepared by city staff.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right. And third, we don't know. I live on the beach side, and occasionally I'll see the thing in front of the Ocean Center of what the upcoming events are. I don't do computers, but I do know there's an e-blast from the Ocean Center that says what's going on at the Ocean Center. But predominantly, I'll be walking somewhere and pop up, and it's, oh, wow, the cheerleaders are here, or this is here, or that's here. We don't know what's going on, and I'm sure the tourists don't. I was talking to one of the merchants on A1A. There was ice skating, but yet there was nothing that the merchants could direct them to. They had nothing in their hand to say, here's the ice skating rink, here are the details. So because of where the ice skating was, if you were on A1A, you really didn't have an idea of where it was located. So I think we have to know what events are in our area, especially with the E-zone coming up. The more tourists that we can bring to whatever's happening in the area is to our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Any other public? Okay. We have a request via Reed that we consider moving number 5. Is number 5 all here and ready to go, or number 5 being the conditional use for the amusement park rides?
I believe they're here.
Okay. Why don't we just go ahead? I don't think it'll take too long. We'll then call action item number 5, request for conditional use approval to establish amusement rides with a height exceeding 27 feet in RDB 4 zoning district.
Mr. Webster, I need to declare a conflict of interest on this item.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
And the chair will recognize Tracy Remark making her appearance.
Great.
Go ahead, Reed.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you. We have a full board tonight. That's great. I want to let you know that this is a for conditional use approval. You've done this once before to approve a Ferris wheel down at the boardwalk, the amusement rides. So it's the similar, I should say, request to allow another ride to come into the amusement ride area, same area, that would be over 27 feet high, and that is a roller coaster. And so it's, I think there's been a lot of excitement in the community anticipating that this might happen, and now we have the opportunity to consider it this evening. There is in your report a number of factors that should be considered in allowing amusement ride. Hopefully I've addressed those all to your satisfaction, and with that I'd like to first of all point out that there are a couple numbers that are important to understand, or items that might change. And I'd like the applicant to come up in just a minute and verify some of the changes. One, in the report, it speaks of the height. When we originally were talking to the applicant, I think as they were putting this together, they were working with about a 65-foot height as the maximum height of this roller coaster. That's now going up from there, and I'll let them just kind of bring you up to date on that. And then the second part of this is there is a ramp that you're aware of that goes from Ocean Ave down into the that amusement park area, and I think they were considering making some changes. Again, I think it'll be best explained by them as to what they're doing with the site plan.
Okay. Shall we have the applicant come forward?
Sure.
Name and address, please.
Stan Manuso, 601 Earl Street. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for hearing our application tonight. To get right to the heart of what Reed was talking about on the height, when we're 80 feet is to the top of the roller coaster ride, and some additional just visual things that are attached to it. And I think, if I remember correctly, when we were before this board a couple of years ago, we were allowed to change our rides out up to 125 feet without having to come back to the board. But we don't have a problem coming back. We love coming back here and telling you all what we're doing. As far as the ramp is concerned, that ramp was put in place by the owner of the property when they knew we were going to be bringing rides in. So it's just a matter of moving some dirt out of the way to make space for the coaster. And so to limit that ramp, or when we eliminate it rather, we're going to be adding a stairwell going down to the actual grade level of the amusement area. And
A public stairwell
public, yes.
for public access.
Yes, for public access. There will be a ticket booth at the top as well, which is already at the ramp. But we're just relocating it to make room for the roller coaster. As far as the rides themselves that are on the property now, there are 5 rides on the western side of the property. 2 of them will be relocated. The Hurricane will be relocated north and east. The tugboat ride, which is a little kiddie ride, will be moved a little bit to the east on an existing concrete pad. We'll be removing the fun slide itself and 2 other rides to make way for the roller coaster. I do have some pictures of the roller coaster and a video from when we were up inspecting the coaster itself, so you can see and get a scale of how big the coaster is and how it actually functions.
Before you do that,
Yes.
just one question. We have in here the roller coaster 65. Did I just hear you say 80 plus
No, 80 is the top limit.
the top?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And while he's playing that, I've got sets of photos that were taken at the same time of the same setting.
Okay.
And all that track is going to be there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's-
you can run the video now.
They can-
Stairways by themselves are not handicapped.
Yeah, the handicap is accessibility comes down.
The video, or the audio on the video, please. Thank you.
For the boardwalk is coming down Main Street. It's like a ramp, and then you come around, and then you're right there. You know, the handicap parking spaces are right there too.
All two of them.
Question
two of them.
relative to the lighting for this as well as the Ferris wheel. Mr. Hood, at a chamber event a few weeks ago, stated that he was your counsel and that you were getting ready to remove the Ferris wheel due to lights,
Yeah, we had an,
turtle lights and such. And so I'm just curious if anything has changed on that. And
yeah, I'm happy to report that the DEP's finally seen the errors of their ways, and they're allowing us to, through code enforcement by the county, to allow the LEDs. And that's part of the county statutes, that the LEDs of a certain wavelength are allowed. And so I've already gone through that process and spent about $200,000 changing the lights out on the Ferris wheel.
okay, so
Which, by the way, that is an actual, I mean, that's like, it's an attraction. I mean, just watching the designs that
Yeah.
happen on that Ferris wheel is just unbelievable.
Yeah, the LED package itself, I mean, has, how many, about 60 or 70 different patterns in it. It just keeps rotating through. They're beautiful.
okay, so because we have the LED wave compliant lights, we're good to go with DEP and the turtle issue?
As far as I'm concerned, yes.
Okay.
We do have to make an application to them, which is being sent out today.
Okay.
So hopefully within the next 3 to 4 weeks, they'll respond.
Do they, when you make an application, does it include anything from the county? Does the county have to give you an okay, or does it go to DEP and then back to the county, or?
It goes to DEP. We'll be supplementing the application with some correspondence with the county.
Okay. Would it help to have anything from us?
An approval.
Well, I get that, but also, I mean, anything to the county, anything, you know, obviously in support of the LED and the county seeing through on its,
It certainly wouldn't hurt, but the county's been very forthcoming. They
Okay.
want to see this project move forward.
okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Gary?
yeah. The illustration you had up there a minute ago, the project will mirror that footprint and that profile? It will look like that?
Yes, it will. That video that you were seeing is the actual roller coaster itself. It was up in Delaware. It was set up, and when we went up and inspected it, I actually rode it. It's a great
But
ride.
the structure
Struc-
that
it's
it's
the-
on,
it's- that's the structure.
It'll be the exact structure?
Yes,
Okay,
it will,
thank you.
Mr. Libby.
Question about hours of operation. What are the hours of operation?
Currently, we go from, we have a staggered opening, depending on time of year and time of day and weather permitting. From open till midnight or on the weekends. Friday night, Saturday night, we may stay open till 1.
I could see a roller coaster having a louder impact into the neighborhoods and the hotels and such than a Ferris wheel. People screaming, all this kind of thing, 6, 7 stories up. And I could see where that could be an issue when getting into, you know, after 11 o'clock, midnight especially.
Mr. Chairman, the slingshot ride, which is in closer proximity to the Hilton, operates those same exact hours, and the screaming does occur, but
You can't, it doesn't carry or anything?
they're okay with it. The only problem we've ever had with the Hilton complaint, because you know at one point I was the landlord there, and was that they had like a train whistle that they blew every single time right before they launched a person, and it was really loud, and they did that to bring attention to the fact that somebody's going to be launched in the air. You know, that was a problem. They stopped doing that, and now it's not a problem.
Okay. Well, speaking of that, are there any amplification of noises and PAs or anything like that associated with the roller coaster?
Nothing that we don't already have, which is just music playing in the background.
Okay, just background, just for ground level
That's correct.
kind of thing, okay. Gary?
Yeah, Stan, could you tell me whether or not you've got a maintenance agreement with the city on the boardwalk area in front of your amusement park there? I'm one of about 30 who walk every morning there, and I've noticed over time an increased challenge with the maintenance of the brand-new boardwalk there. And with this new device, you're going to have a lot more people there. And I don't know whether or not the tenants and the owners of the adjacent property to the boardwalk participate with maintenance at all, I noticed your field is pretty clean in the morning when I get there, which is terrific. But in front of it, I'm sure you've noticed it too. There's blood. There's all kinds of stuff staining on the pavement there. Is this a time to start looking at some sort of a maintenance partnership on that boardwalk?
Mr. Chairman.
Let me ask you this question first.
Specifically, there is no agreement or arrangement with the county or the city, rather. I've never noticed any blood there, though, to be honest with you. But yeah,
I'll see you there tomorrow at
Okay.
7 o'clock, and
okay.
no, this is,
But we do take pride in policing our own area.
yeah.
So, we do go out of our way to try and clean that as best as possible.
And the
Dino,
board.
do you have a comment about how maintenance occurs out there?
Yeah, the city
doesn't
does have pressure cleaning, but in addition, right after Bike Week, the Boardwalk Property Owners Association pressure cleaned the entire boardwalk, all the way from the one end all the way down to a little bit north of the Joyland. So all of that was pressure cleaned by us, but obviously there's a lot of traffic there. So, whatever we did, now you can't even, there is a lot of traffic, but yes, the city does have a maintenance crew that does go out there.
How is the daily cleaning up of all the trash and debris and that
We-
occur out there?
We do it, and we actually pressure clean a lot. In fact, even since Bike Week, in front of our businesses, we have pressure cleaned too, because sometimes you have to, We own a pressure cleaner, we do it, and I actually try to get a riding type of, like a more industrial type, and if anybody has any.
Do you have one of those round
Suggestions.
whiskey ones that work so well?
No, I just have the pressure gun, but I do want to get one of those. So if you got a contact or something, I've tried Lowe's, I've tried every
No,
place.
you got to go to the commercial rental places,
Okay.
and get them. They work 10 times faster and better than.
Yeah, well, I'm willing to buy one if I have to.
But Tracy,
I had a question for Reed, because actually until Stan said it, I had forgotten too, but I do think I recall what he said when we did pass the Ferris wheel, that they were allowed to go up to 125 feet without coming back. Was that just for the Ferris wheel? So they have to come back because it's additional?
It was actually for 3 rides that were specifically mentioned in there.
They were specific.
That were going to be over 27. That was my
And
understanding, going back to the
this
minutes.
wasn't one of the specific ones?
Right.
Right, okay, all right.
And if I could address Mr. Libby one more time on, nothing that we do on our side generates any of that kind of debris. All we do is sell tickets.
Right.
We don't sell food or anything else, any
It's the
beverages.
people standing in
Ah,
front there
yes,
that,
yeah. And we love them being there.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well.
I love them being there too, but I was down there this morning, and honest to God, it's as if nobody had ever cleaned that. It is a mess right now, and I was gonna, under board comments, I was gonna mention to Reed, if there's some possibility that we could, work with the people down there to ramp up the cleanliness factor, because there's a buildup now of junk.
But Gary, and I agree with you, but I will also tell you, I will invite you the day that I pressure clean and show you how clean it is.
Oh, I've been
and then
there.
come back a week later
Yeah.
and see what the difference is. It's just, it's the color of the brick tiles that they used. If they would have gone with if you, and now it's too late, it's like, but if you go to the pavilion and see that darker type of brick that they have laid out, it would have handled a lot more walking traffic and what have you than this white and light pink and, colors that we have right there on the boardwalk. It's the colors.
well, I just think what Gary's trying to say is that maybe the merchants need to be a little more active, and we need to get the city more active in maintaining it.
We're good with it.
Yep.
And
We have an association, and we're more than willing to participate.
okay.
I mean, we want our boardwalk clean too.
Now, your location has been very spiffy, and really in the morning, there's no paper or debris floating around there at all.
Thank you.
But but I could talk to you about those pressure cleaners. too.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
You ready for a motion?
And the next question is, does anyone want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we approve the conditional use for amusement rides as described in our memorandum
Second.
with the amendment to the height.
Yeah, make it 80 feet.
We want to go to 80 feet on the
Second, so
roller
amended.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries unanimous.
Can I
Thank you.
just
Thank
have
you.
one, wait,
Appreciate
I'm
your time.
sorry. You said 80 feet's just the roller coaster, because the Ferris wheel is 90 that we have in here. So I just want to make sure we didn't just limit the Ferris wheel by 10 feet, did
No,
we?
No, this was just the roller coaster.
And by the
Well,
way,
for continued use of, if you read our action items,
Yeah, that's
guys,
right.
continued
That's
use
right.
of the Ferris wheel, and then
The
the
addition of a
addition of the
roller
roller
coaster at 80
coaster, and that was rather a vague motion, so I just want it
That was the
clarified.
intent. Okay.
Thank
and
you.
by the way, one last question. When do you think that, how long do you think DEP, well, I shouldn't phrase it like that. When do you think we will be up and running?
Well, weather permitting and the DEP approval, mid-June.
Great.
I think you've done a wonderful,
Yeah.
been a wonderful addition to the boardwalk.
Oh,
And
tell me about
definitely
it.
the LED lights, I'm sure it was costly, but it really stands out. It's gorgeous.
Thank you. And this board has been very accommodating
it's
to us, and we
been-
appreciate your efforts.
Yeah.
And you way exceeded everything that I expected. Okay, I'll tell you that right now, you know.
Well, that's important.
And he's hard to
I-
please, so I think
I actually took the 5-hour drive with him to Tallahassee to try to help the situation with DEP, you know.
Okay.
That was wonderful.
With respect to agenda items 6 and 7, we'd like to reverse the order on those so we can get Paul and any other staff out of here if necessary after. So, any objection to switching 6 and 7? Okay. We will then move on to item number 7, discussion review of Bike Week and special events, review of the past event, relationship to the E-zone, the fee and application process for special events. This is a matter that I had asked to be brought back before us a few months ago after Bike Week. And what I'd like to do is first bring back to everybody's attention, the reason for wanting to bring this up is the issue of the E-zone and trying to make sure that our special events on Main Street area are going to be in compliance with the E-zone plan. The E-zone plan that has been published and I believe adopted or accepted or however it's been so approved thus far, is contemplating taking the Main Street area and transitioning it into a 52-week-a-year venue that will provide capability for businesses, restaurants, bars, housing, hotels, all within the E-zone, and all in a manner that's going to be compatible to the residential areas surrounding it with buffers and allow everybody hopefully to coexist in a very pleasant manner, as do so many areas around the country and even around this state, areas that have redeveloped to allow that. What has been cited in the E-zone plan includes addressing the issue of quality housing and ownership within the area, the historic structures, buffering the neighborhoods from active event areas through design and program operations. It provides that they want to have offices and residential space along Main Street, including in the second floors above Main Street. They want to be able to integrate with the retail, the dining, the entertainment, with the Seabreeze neighborhood, Surfside Village, the Main Street area, have condo hotels over on the river, hotels and such, even along the Main Street area, and certainly with some larger anchor hotels and such near the ocean at the end of Main Street. And so our concept was to, let's take a look at how the Bike Week event was run, how things are going with it, and what we might suggest relative to making modifications to special events along Main Street. I've also invited Kevin Killian with the Chamber to be here. I think we have Bob Colt. There's Bob, also with the Chamber, very active in Bike Week forever, I think. And I'm sure we may have some others here. And so we were asked to each go out and look at the event during Bike Week. I will tell you first a few things that I noted, again, with respect to Bike Week, just to get things started. First thing I noted, and in a discussion with some of the businesses along Main Street, is there was a much smaller presence of police on Main Street during Bike Week. As few as 4 officers along the whole street at times. They said there was real issues with respect to fights going on, carrying of open beverage containers all along the street, just totally ignoring, no enforcement of the open beverage laws. The number of portalettes or porta-johns was way down. People were urinating everywhere in the alleys, behind, and they were working for weeks to try and get the stink out. And so the lack of porta-johns was a real issue. One night it was the time change night when we reverted. The one Iron Gate, I think it's called, is a large tent facility. They were the only band still playing, and they played till 3:45 a.m. or 2:45 a.m., which was the old 3:45 a.m. The street was virtually deserted. Their place was virtually deserted. And they were playing so loud that there was no way I could even begin to sleep, because I could hear every word within the facility. And yet most all the other bands had all shut down at that point. And I also noted that I counted 8 live bands at any one time within the 2 to 3 blocks of Main Street, including the Main Street station. For some reason, sees fit to have 2 live bands on 2 separate stages at the same time on the same property. And so what I see is we have Main Street Station with 2 bands playing. You got Boot Hill with its band playing in its parking lot, and across the street you got the Iron Gate, all trying to play louder than each other. And like I say, they were playing to 2:45 or 3:45, depending on how you want to look at it. When I asked the police about it, they were like, and of course, code enforcement was non-existent, especially at that time of night. Those are just a few of the things I saw. I saw parking was, I think traffic was way down still, or down further still. And I monitor that by watching how it gets backed up and how the parking is used along Halifax and such. There were many, many times when the parking was barely touched. In fact, a lot of the places that normally just rent out to bikes were also trying to get cars in there and such, because there were less and less bikes. So that's just my 2 cents worth with respect to it. Now I'd like to just start, and we'll go around. And Dino, any comments?
Well, I also walked it. It bothers me when I start seeing the tents that have the full for $20 shirts, knowing that they could afford to do something like that, but the permanent businessman down the road can't. And I do think there should be one set of rules for the permanent bars like Teresa's, and something different for like a tent like this Iron Gate that just pops up, and takes advantage of the situation, because that's an itinerant merchant, under a huge tent, But then I took pictures of the Iron Gate also, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. Gary?
Yeah, could somebody from the chamber come up, please? Could I ask a couple of questions?
Sure.
If that's
Yeah,
appropriate?
and I've also asked Kevin earlier that if at any time they feel they want to chime in, to please do so, because
Sure.
we're not restricting them to any one time or 3 minutes or anything like that.
Good
So-
evening.
Good evening, Gary. How are you?
I'm fine. Kevin, I'm sure that the chamber is interested in these comments and general perceptions, and I know that you police yourselves. And I'm sure that these comments are not exceptional. I'm sure they didn't surprise you. Are there any remedies that,
Actually, some of them did surprise me.
did they?
Yes, because normally I would hear about something like that, and I didn't. And
Which was that?
about the lack of portlets, about now you and I had a conversation about the ban, so I'm familiar with that. But the lack of portlets and the fights and the drunkenness, I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, let me get back on point. I guess.
I witnessed a good bit of it, too.
Yeah, what we're seeing is sort of a different perception, looking at the same event from different perspectives. And I'm wondering, from your side of it, from the chamber and the associated task force that you work with, what changes, if any, are you going to make on the event on Main Street?
Well, I mean,
Or
I
were
can't-
you satisfied that it?
Well, I mean,
went well?
you're right. I look at it from a different perspective. I must confess, I'm not out there at 3:30 in the morning. I'm looking at it from traffic. I'm looking at it from the reports I get back from businesses. I think the first weekend was disappointing to businesses. It was raining. It was not very good weather for the visitors. But all in all, I've heard from a lot of businesses that their business was good. Now, Dan and I had about a half an hour conversation, and I didn't hear about the fighting. But a lot of but a lot of this, you have to understand that what we deal with is a set of guidelines passed by the city commission. And if a property meets those guidelines, they pass. Now, if the guidelines need to be changed, we'll absolutely make some suggestions. to the commission.
Are you going to change any of the guidelines?
I can't make that decision on what I've just heard. I mean, when our task force meets on Friday, I would encourage anybody who wants to come to the wrap-up meeting.
Well,
But,
frankly,
we will. Go ahead.
frankly, sort of, so you feel that really, from your side of it, from your perspective, there weren't problems this year that were any greater than in previous years? Bob?
Well, Gary, like Kevin said, we have set of guidelines, and we're not the enforcers of it. We see if the applications meet the guidelines set by the city. If somebody's urinating behind the bar, that's nothing we can do about. That's a police or code enforcement. If they say they're going to have a certain number of portalets in the guidelines, they meet, and then those portalets aren't there, that's a code enforcement issue. There's nothing we can do Friday morning to change that.
Well, I mean, I see your position, and I think this is, again, one of these situations where different groups look at the same activity from a slightly different perspective and get a different reaction. Do you know whether or not the fees collected that went to the city reflected the actual costs to the city, or how close are we, or is that a consideration of the chamber?
Yes, it is a consideration. And actually, both bike events make money. Now, the city at times chooses to take like the $140,000 they make on parking and dedicate that to the Peabody. They choose to take the $50,000 they make on Riverfront Park and dedicate that to cultural arts and services. They choose to take a solid waste fee increase that we agreed to about 7 years ago. And we agreed to it, the business community agreed to it on the pretense that they would take this fee and make it offset event costs. And that was about $375,000 per year. That money still exists, but it's been rolled into the new contract. So the dollars presented, even the way they're presented now, the city does make money on the event.
Okay, as a partner, as a participant, I
Sure.
guess, in the event. Okay. Has there been any discussion about leveling the playing field to businesses on A1A?
As
I mean,
far
we're in the
as-
same redevelopment area.
As far
Some
as-
are not allowed to have itinerant outdoor vending, and others are. And I've never understood that distinction. Maybe you could help me with that distinction.
Well, maybe, or Paul could. I mean, back when the city commission decided to have itinerant vending in the redevelopment areas, it was specifically intended that they would take these profits, they would put them back into their businesses. If the city commission chooses to extend itinerant vending, which I don't know that anybody wants, I mean, itinerant vending is the new evil, so I'm sure that nobody wants that. But as far as within that realm, no, I don't know that anybody.
So it was
suggested
the
that it go
city
to.
commission that
Absolutely.
restricted it to
Sure.
Main Street.
Sure.
Okay.
Main Street, Beach Street, Ballou Road, and Mary McLeod Bethune.
Right.
Okay, well, thanks very much.
Tim, do you have a question or?
Well, as far as
You can stay up there,
what the
Kevin.
chairman was talking about.
Right.
On A1A, and I know you basically focus on the 4 streets that you just mentioned. It is a citywide, countywide event, so it might behoove you to come out on A1A and talk to the merchants there, because we did not have a good bike week.
Okay.
The guys on A1A.
Okay.
The people that I talked to. As far as the fights and things like that went on, yes, there was a lot of problems this year on the street. And you might want to look at, because of scheduling, because what you did, not you particularly, but melded bike week and spring break together. So it wasn't really a bike week, and it wasn't really spring break. It was a mismatch of both events. And you had 2 genres that were mixing together that should not be together. So now, we've got another early Easter coming next year, and we've got another bike week that's getting pushed later. And I don't think it helps anybody doing that, because I don't know if you walk down Main Street, and you might want to walk down there at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Well, I have. I
Okay.
just, not at 3:30, I must
Okay.
confess.
But if you saw some of the kids that were down there trying to get into the bars, that don't get into the bars, so what happens is they're drinking in their cars, whatever, on the streets and things like that, and they're mixing in, and that's where the problems come into.
Okay.
But the scheduling is a big problem.
The scheduling is out of our hands, and the reason is because the Speedway moved to 500, okay, 1 week later in the calendar in anticipation of the NFL increasing their season, okay, which they didn't. Let me finish, Tim.
Oh, I understand.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we can't do Bike Week without the Speedway, because we have to have motocross and we have to have the Daytona 200, and it takes them 2 weeks to recover. So from now on, it's my understanding that this will be the date forever. So maybe what we should look at is moving spring break forward. We're moving. We're not going to move Easter, obviously, but I mean, it's out of our hands.
You can't tell the colleges when to break either.
Yeah.
Say again?
You can't tell.
You can't tell the colleges when to break. They break
No,
at the same
yeah,
time.
but
And honestly, the big change at the Speedway, to me, I really find it hard to believe, because the main thing they have to do is move some dirt and put a chicane out there in the infield, and they've got more land moving equipment than DOT out there.
I would invite you to speak with them.
So, well, yeah, it'd be nice if they were a little more civically conscious when it comes to that
Right.
scheduling there. But what I'm saying is that was probably the main problem, because you got 2 groups of people that are diametrically opposed, and you threw them into the same.
I've learned more about the timeshare business than I care to know.
What's
Trust
that?
me. More about the timeshare business than I care to know. Yeah.
So, as far as the vending and why I went there, you're absolutely right. It was there and was meant to be a vehicle to generate income, to make year-round business occur on these streets. You look at Main Street, and you look at Beach Street, and the streets that itinerant vending's gone on. Can you not agree that it's worked kind of the opposite? Beach Street, yeah, the car dealerships have moved, and that was a big part of it, but did the car dealerships move because of in the beginning, yeah, they liked the money, but in the end, it was too much of an expense to keep moving vehicles off, displacing their customers for the 3 weeks out of the year, or 4 weeks when you talk about the setup and the breakdown of the event. And they decided it was more of a hindrance, and they moved out. The same thing with Main Street. You know, there's a few businesses, and Teresa's one of them, that she keeps her places open year round. If you drive down there today, which I did, and you look at the street, I'd probably have to say 60 to 70% of that street is closed.
Talking about Beach Street or Main Street?
Main
Okay.
Street, Main Street.
Agreed.
So, if we look at the E-zone plan, and they're kind of vague about it, which as they came through the whole revision process in there, it got a little bit watered down. What's your interpretation of what the E-zone plan says regarding identity?
Well, it was a very small section in there that said something to the effect of that the special events could have a negative effect on year-round tourism. But I will tell you that no, the car dealers didn't move out of that because of that. The car dealers moved because they got a big chunk of money, and Cadillac made them build a new facility. That's why the 2 moved. And then the reason that it looks so desolate right now is the real estate market crashed. But to your point about itinerant vending, I don't disagree that something needs to be looked at, but in the last 7 years, itinerant vending in Daytona Beach proper has decreased by 50%. So by that definition, Main Street should be thriving. I don't disagree we should have the discussion. I'm just saying that if we've already predetermined what you think the result is or what the demon is, there is a certain amount of itinerant vending that's needed in festivals. Should we maybe look at decreasing it, changing what they're vending, Sure, we can definitely look at that. But I mean, you know, the itinerants are the newest convenient evil. And,
I
you
wouldn't
know,
go as far as saying it's the newest convenient evil because we've been discussing it for 20 years.
it's the most convenient because I don't have to look at my business and say, well, maybe I should be marketing to these folks. Mike Mitchner, does anybody know Mike? Mike Mitchner heads Sam's Club. He called me up last year. He said, how do I target these vendors that are coming into town? Because they don't bring food with them. They buy it here. So he sent a mailing out to all the vendors. He got a list from the city. Well, now Bike Week and the week before that is the busiest time that he has. So, you know, I'm not saying that you could market your shop to them and they would come a-running, but I'm saying that there's more to the discussion on getting Main Street to be a year-round activity than just itinerant vending. But that's a convenient label to put on there.
Interesting thing.
The truth as I see it, Tim. Yeah.
Tim, anything else?
Nope, that'd be it.
Tracy?
Actually, a couple things. The study that we have here tonight, where did that come from? I don't see who did it. This is Soskin, the 2001, okay. Were you able to find when Kerry Smith was still the city manager, the special events study on the cost to the city? Because I think it would show, at least when he was the city manager, and if we've lost 50% of our vending, I can't imagine that we're paying for ourselves, but it showed what the special events actually cost the city. City government, not city business, city government.
Right. I have not put my hands on that document.
Okay, could we maybe have the city clerk's office look for that? Because it should be a public record document. And I can't remember the company who did it. It was an independent outside consultant. But I think that would be helpful as this continues. Because I do think, I mean, we're not deciding anything here. It's just discussions on what might need to be done.
I'm sure the chamber has a copy of it. I'm
we have
sure you
several.
do, yes.
They have, well, that one would be helpful. And also, and before I get to some of my questions and comments, the City Commission, they had a workshop last month. I think it was going to be the day after our meeting, Reed. You said on the initial special events, on fees and things.
Yes.
It would be helpful if we could get a copy of the minutes. Do they keep minutes during workshops?
They have a video.
Yeah.
Okay. Is the video on the website?
And there's
It will
actually
be
a
if it's not
PowerPoint
yet.
presentation that kind of laid it all out.
Okay.
That'll tell you what.
Yeah, minutes or something like that would just be helpful. Or if it's on the city's website, I'll check there. But that would be great to know. I think it's interesting, and I don't actually have questions for the chamber, but I will say I do recognize you guys are just a pass through. This is definitely, the city commission makes the rules. The city commission devises the guidelines. I understand that. I really get that. So I would never, quite frankly, hold you up in terms of you're supposed to change it. But I would hope that you would be interested in knowing how it might work better and be open to suggesting to the city commission if there are guidelines that you find don't work well or have not worked well. As Bob Coleman said, they show up and they don't have all the porta potties they should have. I would hope the chamber would recommend to the city commission how to close down somebody like that the very next day. So they do not open for business until they provide what they have told you they would provide. So those are the kinds of things I would hope to hear from the chamber. That
Well,
you have
and we have
hands-on,
done that.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, that where you
Right.
have hands-on, direct hands-on experience. I think it's interesting, Dan, you were reading specifically from the E-zone. You know, the Urban Land Institute, which did their study in 2004, you might as well have been reading from that, creating buffers,
Right.
managing special events, everything you said, how to make Main Street become year-round. I think, quite frankly, what, to me, looking at this and dealing with this for 20 years, has been Main Street's downfall, is that it is only about Bike Week. And it has so specifically become only about Bike Week that, and I don't know how you change that perception. Main Street Daytona is Bike Week, so I don't know how you have it be anything other than what it is for 3 weeks out of the year, unless you actually have to change what's done there. I think vending is part of that discussion. The thing too, and I'd be interesting, we don't have the police here tonight, but in the ULI, Urban Land Institute study, one of the things that they pointed out, and this goes directly to what you were saying, Dan, let me find it here. And this was in 2004, but the crime data then, and I know the police had been getting things down, but I also know in the last year, crime has been going back up, and they're working to keep it down, but they still weren't less than what they were. But at that time, the redevelopment area, this particular redevelopment area, had a higher crime rate than the city of Jacksonville, Florida, which had a population 8 times larger. So until we honestly deal with the crime and the lack of police presence, and the police, I think there were less of them there because we had them standing here in January saying they're out of money. They are out of money to do the job they need to do in that area for what we invite into the area. Not only bikers, not only spring breakers, I would say general partiers, okay? And they're going to be partying differently than art show people might party. So they have more revelry going on, and unless we can police that, unless we can keep that clean, again, that needs to be a very real part of the discussion, how to pay for that and how to make sure that that happens. I do think it's time to revisit. Actually, I think it's time to get rid of Daytona Beach being the only 3 a.m. closing in the entire county. I think that invites something into our community. We've had it a few years. It invites something into our community between 2 and 3 a.m. and the police will tell you, they end up having to be at the bars when they close because you end up with people that have come from other parts of the community, other parts of the county to finish their drinking and partying here. And it creates a problem. And I'm not talking just Bike Week here. I'm talking about the spring break bars on Seabreeze. It has created a huge problem. It creates a problem downtown. I think it is time to say that is not working for us as a community in terms of our image. It may be working for some business owners, but it's not working for us as a community, and I think it's time to put that community first. The only thing I would say about vending, I don't think, and I would disagree here, I don't think there needs to be a certain amount of itinerant vending at festivals. I think your businesses, if they have the opportunity to extend their wares, to buy wares for it, where they are not competing with people who can undercut them, because we have made special rules, because we've suspended our real rules that we have the rest of the city the rest of the year, that you would still get a festival atmosphere with the businesses being able to do TPAs, being able to bring in merchandise for that festival when they know that they're not going to be undercut. A1A cannot sell T-shirts 5 for $20 when they're paying more than the vendor is who is setting up a tent to bring them here. So right there, we are setting up, I think, an unfair business advantage. And I think the Land Development Code, the first thing it says about Land Development Code about outside itinerant vending or outside activities, the city of Daytona Beach, this is Article 17, has an economy that is strongly dependent on tourism. The value of property is in part dependent on its appearance. Outside activities, including sales, display, preparation, service, and storage, and I would say concerts, can adversely affect the appearance and the quality of life of a community and its public image. It is within the public interest and contributes to the general welfare to project an attractive community image. So saying, except as specifically provided otherwise, all activities, vending, storage, and display shall be conducted entirely within an enclosed structure in all districts of the city. And there are some very specific, like M1 and BW, storage and outside sales, fuel sales. And it is only by resolution of the city commission that we suspend these rules for the events. And again, it's not just Bike Week, that any outside event, we suspend these rules, and we only suspend them in our blighted areas. And what I don't get, if we say that this kind of look damages our appearance and it damages our image, why would we take the areas that are struggling the hardest with their image, that have been called blighted, and put the very thing in them that supposedly damages our public image and our appearance? And I personally think that's the discussion that needs to happen about vending, and to find a way to make it look better, to find a way to make the hours work, to find a way to change some of the guidelines of what's required, and to find a way to actually make it competitive for the people who are here. So those are my comments. And I do agree, also, we need to have code enforcement at night. They cannot disappear at 6 o'clock in the evening. And they cannot only be out there Tuesday through Saturday or whenever that they're there. They need to change their hours. They need to be responsive. They need to be reachable. That was a big problem this time. And also, I would say the amplified sound, I don't know if it's because there were less bikes in town, because there definitely was less bike traffic. I mean, you could go down, you could shoot a cannon off down the middle of Beach Street Thursday night, the second Thursday night just about. But the concert sounds, the outside music was just unbelievable, even up at Seabreeze. So I do think that we need to deal with those hours and deal with the sound as well. So those are my comments on it.
Is that the noise that was emanating from Main Street?
Oh yeah, I got out in my car and drove around till I found it. At 2:30 in the morning.
David?
Wow. Well, following Tracy is like following Bubba Watson on a shot that you just can't compete. I'm going to agree with everything that's been said here tonight, but I do have a couple comments. Listening to the chairman here, at first thing, it take me back to being on y'all's side back in 1989, when Frank Heckman and everybody, a lot of people sitting out here wanted to do away with spring break. And they did. They did away with spring break. They did away with my business, Timmy's, a lot of our businesses. And I guess what I want to say is, the chamber is the sponsor of Bike Week, am I not? Right? You, Bob, and Kevin, you made a comment that when there's a problem on Main Street, the urinals, the fights, this and that, it's not your problem. You said it's, that's not what we do. Well, you guys are, that is your problem. You are the official sponsors of Bike Week. Just like when 1989, when the Red Hot Chili Peppers came here and destroyed the Texan Hotel, it was all of our problem, people that were involved in spring break. And what I'm getting at is, if the city on a whole, and the Chamber of Commerce, the Halifax Chamber of Commerce, doesn't do something now, as it's now become the forefront again, itinerant vending, the fights, the urinating, the public, the noise late at night, the drinking and all that, you're going to lose it all together, just like we did. We thought it would never end. Bike Week could actually end, guys. People are going to finally get upset enough, and where Main Street, Beach Street, Mary McLeod Bethune Boulevard are only viable, twice a year in the town, and you guys do need to go out and walk down A1A and talk to the other businesses that are involved in Daytona Beach year-round, paying the high property taxes, putting up with the crime that's brought in by the events and stuff like that. And maybe we should try to get together with the Speedway and see maybe we can't do Bike Week before the Daytona 500, because there's a month there between the 24 hours and the 500 now. So, and that was a huge problem. There was no spring break, so to speak, as far as our business was concerned. Bike Week took up the 10 best days of spring break. You can't move colleges. When they break the same time every year. Easter is the only thing that moves. Why? I don't know, but it does. So maybe we should get together with Joey Chitwood and Lisa France and the Halifax Chamber and the city and say, hey, is there some way we can accommodate this? I know everybody, Kevin, you said good luck. Basically, you told Timmy, good luck trying to get hold of this Speedway. You never know. Joey Chip has been real open as far as bringing families back into the race weeks and that kind of stuff. That's beside the point. The thing that I saw the worst is, besides drinking and the fighting, goes back to the city, zero code enforcement. If you go down A1A today, forget Bike Week, but if you go down A1A today, you'll see signs for tattooing, which is a false advertisement because you're not allowed to tattoo within the city of Daytona Beach. But there's signs that say tattoo. There are shirts hanging up on doors outside, blowing in the wind, 3 for $5, 4 for $20, whatever it is. That's against the code of the city of Daytona Beach. We have no code enforcement. From 9 to 5 or 5 to 6 a.m. That's a huge problem. And like Tracy said, they don't need to go home at 6 o'clock at night. They need to be there from 6 till 2 in the morning. So without going through what everybody else said, which I agree with, we need to somehow, with you guys, the city, and whoever else is involved, businesses all along A1A, because this is affecting everybody, not just the Main Street merchants. It's affecting us, Timmy, everybody else that has a business that has to put up with all the rules and regulations of the redevelopment area, but we're getting killed. And if you don't think so, go talk to the businesses that aren't on Main Street. And my last comment is, I've been in there probably 30 years. I can name 2 city commissioners in 30 years that have walked in our stores and asked us how we were doing. Never had a mayor walk in our store, never had a city manager walk in our stores, and never had anybody with any kind of authority around here walk, except for 2 that I can remember in 30 years walk up inside our stores. And that's my comment. I'm just saying it happened to us during spring break of 1989. What Dan said is right, and those are the same comments that were made by the general public against spring breakers back in 1989, and look what happened. I don't want to see Bike Week gone, but there needs to be some major changes done to Bike Week. And itinerant vending, I hate to say it, Kevin, but it hasn't been just the newest evil. It's been around for a long time as far as a lot of the businesses in that area are concerned, and the city of Daytona Beach for that matter, that pay taxes year-round. That's all.
Thanks, Dave. Suzanne?
Well, being new to the community and new to this board, I actually just have a couple questions. I've heard that there was a thought about actually taking the Bike Week and taking it off of Main Street and Beach Street and putting it into facilities out by NASCAR. Is that just totally like something out of the realm of reality in most of your opinions that are on this board for a long time?
I think they had a lot of stuff going out there this year, didn't they?
They have a lot going on.
Yeah, Bike Week is spread out all over the county, and there's a huge event at the Speedway already now, compared to what it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a huge event up at Ross Myers and US 1. So there is activity out there, but Main Street is still the heart of the festival.
So so in your opinion, at the chamber, if the Bike Week were moved off of Main Street and not allowed to be on Main Street and Beach Street, but have a huge facility elsewhere where there wouldn't be all these constant year after year objections, would that destroy the bikers coming here and wanting to celebrate, in your opinion?
Well, this event has been around for 54, 55 years now, and the Speedway is doing everything they can to encourage the event to come out to the Speedway. I mean, they have stuff going on out there. They're doing everything they can to encourage it to go up to US 1. The Ross Myers would like that up there. So it's not an event that you can just flip a switch and say, okay, now all the bars, all the entertainment, everything's going to be out in the west part of the county.
Well, I guess my question is, because I'm really so new to this, I'm just really searching for answers and thoughts. Could the city not give incentives to the owners, the bar and saloon owners and the business owners that have that entertainment on Main Street? Could they not somehow work in a co-program and give them incentives that they would be willing to move that business off of Main Street? mean, is that just totally unimaginable to happen?
I'm not sure
yeah.
that's practical.
Okay, well, that's what I'm asking.
You know, and certainly
Yeah,
my
that's
goal.
like, yes.
Yeah, yeah, that is, the question becomes, you know, how do we get the Main Street area
That's not what government does.
to be managed more effectively and in a better manner that's gonna be consistent with the E-zone? We don't wanna destroy the event, we don't wanna necessarily move the event. I actually would like to see parts of the event get better there, okay? Because I see the traffic there declining substantially. It's not the traffic that's the problem, okay? It's the fact that you have, this year you had the spring breakers and all other issues, and another issue, and that was the bottles. I guess they were serving bottles of beer in many of the bars, and they were walking the street with bottles, and bottles were
Broken
breaking, and
everywhere.
spring breakers were cutting their feet, and all kinds of stuff like that. Because imagine that, they were in their bare feet or flip-flops and such. But no, the concept isn't to, we can never eliminate Bike Week from Main Street, okay? It's what can be done to make it work better is my idea. So you know, and the city has a definite impact in that they suspend certain rules now that allow these itinerant vendors and some things to occur that aren't permitted in other areas of the city. And there's some questions about, is that discriminatory and should be that continued and such?
Well,
May I throw some numbers out real quickly in response to your idea that perhaps the city could relocate businesses?
No, not businesses, but just the Bike
Not for your
Week
reasons,
business.
but for other reasons. We've been avidly looking at property acquisition on Main Street because it's part of the E-zone plan to aggregate properties and make them available for redevelopment. And just to throw out some numbers, Cruisin' Cafe was available to us for $1.5 million, but it was encumbered with another 45-year lease. Corbin is only $5 million. The Doghouse is only $2.5 million. These numbers are so far out of our ability to fund that the idea of buying properties simply to slowly throttle Bike Week down is just not feasible. That, again, we have looked at that for different reasons, but we would like to aggregate properties so that we can have convention hotels, not necessarily because we want to do something directly with Bike Week, but the properties are valued in the multi-millions of dollars.
Well, I was more thinking in the line of during those 2 weeks of Bike Week that the owners of the bars and saloons, entertainment places on Main Street would be given some sort of a license to operate in an area out, you know, near NASCAR, where they would not lose any business income.
The problem with that is they can't move their liquor license. Their liquor license is for a specific address. They just can't put it in their pocket, take it down the street, and open up another bar. Let me introduce myself, too, because I didn't do that. My name is Paul McKittrick. I'm with the Development Services Department. And as I told the commission at last week's fee workshop, I've done over 40 motorcycle events. So I've got some dirt under my nails. And I can answer any questions that you might have about the fee workshop, too, because I was at the lectern for that.
So could the license, I assume the city could make some sort of new ruling on?
No, it's state.
It's
It's state.
Let
Liquor
me
license.
refer to something that former City Commissioner Tracy Remark brought up.
So it's an impossibility.
The City Commission can do anything it wants with Bike Week through the master plan process. It can say it's this big, it can say it's this big. It can say you can do this out there or you can do that out there. It has a lot of authority through the master plan process.
But
not
the liquor license is state.
Yes.
Yes.
And you can't just move something out to the Speedway because the Speedway controls the Speedway.
Well, I didn't mean the
Yeah.
Speedway itself and them sharing in the business. I just meant the land. There's a large amount of
No,
empty
it's-
land out there.
No, there's county land out there, and there's private land out there, and, no.
May I make one other comment and then I'll sit
Please,
down?
Paul.
I'd like to reiterate something
Yeah.
that Mr. Libby said. There's not one Bike Week. There are Bike Weeks all over the county. Every venue is different. Even within our city, the Bike Week on Main Street is very different from Beach Street, is very different from MMB, is very different from the Speedway. We have multiple Bike Weeks. So to say, what do we do about Bike Week, is I think to discount where Bike Week works well, and most people seem to think it works very well on MMB. We have a little growing Bike Week on South MLK by the Safari, doesn't seem to create any problems. Beach Street, again, maybe you've got an itinerant vending problem, but you don't seem to have a behavior problem there because there aren't any bars and restaurants of any note. It's Main Street. So I would ask you, if Main Street is the problem, let's be very specific to that and not say that we have a problem with the whole Bike Week event.
Paul, I think
Paul.
that's our purview,
That is
is
our
only,
focus, is
only
Main Street.
the Main Street redevelopment.
And by the way, Paul, is there anything we could do about neighboring cities like Holly Hill that closed down US 1 right in front of Daytona Yamaha or whatever, and then have that big event that was another itinerant vending event?
Do you think Daytona Beach would listen to Holly Hill telling us what not to do? I doubt it.
No, but
No.
isn't US 1 a state road that, you know, that, I mean, if they diverted traffic and everything?
I mean, I got stuck in that traffic, and that's a state highway,
Right,
and it was shut all 4 lanes.
It's a federal highway.
right. I mean,
Federal
to stop a federal highway, which actually, you know, comes to our city.
That's Kevin, they the one that sponsored it.
Let's worry about Daytona Beach.
Paul, Mr. Chairman, can I have a question for Mr. McKittrick?
Well, wait, we hadn't finished
Can we
going
continue
around.
around and then we'll come back?
Just have one more. I just want to make one comment. I don't want you to think, I want to tell you that when I lived in Orlando, and all my friends lived in Winter Park, I chose to live out by Disney World on International Drive and Dr. Phillips. And the reason I did is I love the festivity. I love being around people that are on holidays, and I love being around people that are on vacation, because there's just a general wonderful good mood with people, and it's a great environment for me mentally to be in. So I live 1 block from Main Street on the corner of Harvey and Oleander, and I love when the festivities and the atmosphere are here during Bike Week. I just wish that it was more like Tracy said, from an art show crowd, when you don't have those ensuing problems that you have from some of the people there. But I do love all of the festivities that go on during Bike Week, just the general atmosphere. I think it's wonderful.
Dave, Dustin?
So I just have a few comments. First, Bike Week is Daytona Beach just as much as Daytona Beach is Bike Week. So from what I've heard tonight, what I saw when I went down through there, what I've seen when I've been on Main Street in previous Bike Weeks, it's more of an enforcement issue that is an easy issue to deal with, or easier than trying to do some of the other things. And I think that for me personally, I hate to see people going out to the west side of the county. I read the paper and I saw where I think it was Sanford or DeLand. I think it was DeLand had a one-day thing that was more family friendly, if that's a good enough term for it. And so when I read it, I thought, well, why don't we have something like that? You know, I've got 2 kids that are 6 and 4, and they like seeing the cool shiny bikes that have the big wheels and everything else just as much as some adults do. You know, how does that fit into our E-zone plan? Is there a separate place that we can do that's away from the Bar Street or away from Main Street and down on A1A? Maybe down near Sunsplash Park or whatever, some sort of static displays. How do we draw? I think there's a way that we could be successful in drawing different crowds that all enjoy Bike Week for one reason or another into different parts of our city. And if we do that, we'll be able to sustain it. You know, my concern now is that I see the average age of the bikers going up and going up and going up to the point where they're not going to be able to ride anymore. And if the city of Daytona Beach, Main Street specifically, has to evolve, but you know, if the city as a whole doesn't figure out a way to backfill those bikers, it's going to be gone before we know it. So, while I don't like public intoxication, I don't like all the fighting and all that good stuff that goes along, I think that those things can be mitigated through enforcement, whether it's more police or more code enforcement. So the other piece of this is, how do we deal with itinerant vending or you know, tent cities or tent bars, whatever we want to call them? You know, I think that before we make any hardcore decisions about itinerant vending, we should be sure that there's something that's going to fill that place. Because in terms of redevelopment, the fact of the matter is, it's cheaper for me not to add plant property and equipment to a lot than it is for me, than it is for me to build all that stuff. So if we or the city decides to exclude itinerant vending from the Main Street area, what's going to go in those lots? You know,
Well, that's the whole point of this. When itinerant vending first came around, it was
There weren't lots.
it was to bring businesses back to Main Street, to enhance Main Street, to help it out. And they found out just what you just said. It was cheaper for them to open up twice a year with a tent and rent it out than it was to have brick and mortar and pay the property taxes like everyone else does. That, you just nailed what the crux
Yeah.
of the problem as far as itinerant vending goes.
And every-
Nobody here wants to get rid of Bike Week, but that's one of the biggest problems is there's two of us that are competing, that have businesses on A1A that compete directly and lose a lot of money during Bike Week just because of itinerant vending. But we still have to pay the full nut to have a business on A1A.
right.
Now,
And
one
it
thing,
is
Every year
cheaper to
these-
tear down the buildings and keep the lots for vending
which
than to keep the business.
they have done in the past. And one thing that Tracy mentioned earlier is that another avenue to tackle this would be through the TPA process, whereas a lot of the businesses on A1A have the ability to have TPAs and bring their stuff out in front of the, and basically Main Street has the same ability.
And
Right.
Mr. Libby earlier made the correct statement that because we are one block south or one block north of Main Street, we're not allowed to itinerant vend, even though we have to abide by all the rules of the Main Street redevelopment area. Good example was a few years ago when Yamaha came to us, wanted to rent our south parking lot for big bucks. We weren't allowed to do it because we are not allowed to itinerant vend, and we don't sell motorcycle parts related material in our store. That's the problem with itinerant vending.
And what I think it's doing is exactly what Paul said, is the values are inflated falsely for vacant land because of what they can get for 3 weeks out of the year versus if they weren't allowed to put their tents up, then they would be forced to build the building and operate 52 weeks out of the year. We'd have a different Main Street. And it may cause some property values to go down, but at least maybe someone can afford to put a regular business in there and operate it, as opposed to just having a tent. Because what's happened is the number of itinerant vendors has been cut in half, but I'll bet you the square footage of those vendors has not. Okay? So what we have is bigger tents, less vendors, but yet the same stuff being sold. And what we have is all these, it comes down to, do you want a tent or do you want a building? Okay, I call it tents or bricks. And if we're gonna have an E-zone, we have to have the bricks there. We can't survive on tents. So, but is that all you had to comment on?
Yeah, that was, yeah. My point was
Yeah.
really about I want to make sure that before we give up the itinerant vending, that we know that somebody's going to move into that lot and build the bricks,
Well,
right? Because
I don't know if you're ever gonna get that. You may have to reach a point where you have to say,
I realize that. I'm just saying that to Kevin's point and to some other points, there is money that's brought in. While it's not as much as a brick and mortar and it's not 52 weeks out of the year, there is money that we would be sacrificing.
we need an environment that's gonna allow other businesses to come in there.
which is why we brought up a couple months ago, talking to the county and having some of the surface parking lots open year-round for the businesses, so that way.
And parking is next on the agenda
Right.
tonight too, and what's
Gotcha.
going on with respect to that, because that's supposedly a big issue, and we're gonna see what we can do to get that addressed.
Yep. That's it.
Teresa.
Thank you.
Promise not to unload on you, girl.
We should have started with you.
I wish success was as easy as you all make it sound here tonight. But I just want to first comment on a couple of things that I heard stated earlier. As I think you all know, I own and operate a couple of businesses on Main Street, and I personally witnessed code enforcement there on multiple occasions. So I thought code enforcement was very present and visible and in operation. Secondly, our closing time is actually, Tracy, it's actually 2:30 a.m. The doors must close, the outside lights go off, no drinks can be served after 2:30. So while the customer can remain in the bar and finish his drink until 3, it's effectively a 2:30 a.m. close, if that makes you feel any better. I just thought for the record.
I actually knew that, but
Yeah,
it's
okay, well,
still
I
the
just-
the perception
yeah.
is 3 o'clock, you can stay there till 3, so you're open till 3.
Yeah,
That's-
okay. With regard to these outside itinerant vendors, in order to have that privilege, you must have a brick and mortar business that must operate a minimum of 6 hours a day, 250 days a year. And the property pays taxes, both on the outside property and the brick and mortar, all year as well. So everyone on Main Street is paying their share of real estate taxes too. So it's not like we don't. And my supposition is that the reason that the City Commission has seen it fit to allow this privilege of itinerant vending on Main Street is because when they looked at A1A and saw the traffic count and the business level there, they may not have felt it was quite the same as what they saw when they looked at Main Street and the traffic level there and the business level there. That's just a hunch, but that's what I suspect. Now here's what I wanted to share with you. I just had to react to some of the things I've heard. In my opinion, Bike Week is an intensive retail, entertainment, food and beverage enterprise. It is adult-oriented. It injects revenue into Main Street businesses and property owners that enables us to survive the many months of the year with slow to no traffic on the street. Itinerant vending is a significant component of Bike Week. Itinerant vendors add color, depth, and interest to the enterprise. They also contribute risk-free income to the business or property owner. Bike Week on Main Street would probably not last long without itinerant vending. I'm 100% with Kevin on that. And without Bike Week, businesses up and down the street would close, property values and the tax base would suffer. Until critical infrastructure is put into place, and by that I mean parking, and probably multiple parking lots that are convenient throughout the street, this district cannot approach its potential of an entertainment district that complements the Ocean Center and the Peabody. But even with parking, Bike Week would be a highly desirable event in any special events calendar. I believe that Bike Week should be the grandfather of events on Main Street and that we should have many other multiple events throughout the year. But it's just very difficult for us to move forward on a year-round basis without adequate parking. We are there right beside this tourism area on A1A, the strip of hotels. I don't know, what is it, 15,000 hotel rooms now? But we're unable to participate in that business because we have no parking. So criticize us all you want for being too loud and too noisy, and I would not even consider stepping into price setting. And I mean, if you all want to get into price setting, do it at your own peril, but I think that's a very inappropriate solution. You know, You know, it's the marketplace, and that's where people compete. But anyway, those are my observations from Bike Week.
Can I ask you one question about a comment you just said about are you talking about when you say you can't participate with the hotel visitors, are you talking about just your Main Street businesses or A1A, Hog Heaven? Because you don't have parking.
I'm sorry,
mean,
all
isn't
of my
less-
comments were geared to Bike Week Main Street.
Okay, so you're saying the people on A1A don't walk down 2 blocks from A1A?
We need to be able to operate year-round, okay? And to operate year-round, we have to be able to have adequate parking so that our customers can park there and conveniently, okay?
But I thought you had parking. That's what I'm curious. I thought you had parking. So
I
I'm
have
not-
parking. It's not convenient. It's not advertised. It's not. You've been to Winter Park. You've seen their multiple off-site parking garages. We don't have that. Okay. Yes, I have parking, but if there's a large event at the Ocean Center, my places are gone. The doghouse is gone. All of our private places, you know, go to that. And I'm not objecting to that, but I'm just saying there's a shortage of parking. And so we've got to have convenient parking places for customers to come. And that will then enable the businesses to, I believe, provide a more mainstream product and atmosphere that is more, it's just more, it could be more mainstream than what it is. As it is, you know, the bikers are the only one that come to us in significant numbers. We've had success with New Year's Eve, but here again, that's an outdoor event with itinerant vending, outdoor sound, amplified sound. You know.
And you used to have success with LSO. I mean, I've been down to,
I wouldn't go that far.
okay, because it always seemed packed during LSO things, the different concerts and stuff would happen.
And the other thing I was going to say is TPAs, okay, you can have 500 square feet of sales space, okay, and maybe that works for some people, but my operations exceed that. So I happily pay an itinerant vendor fee like anyone from Ohio would.
Question, Teresa,
Which-
parking. How often do you see your parking encroached by an event at the Peabody or Ocean Center? And I'm curious, how much is their parking underutilized?
Okay, are you asking
Okay.
how much is theirs underutilized and how much is mine
Both,
used?
actually, you know, it's, because I see their parking often chained up and totally unavailable, okay?
Yes, yes, it is.
And I think that's a crime.
Right.
It's unfortunate
Yeah, and,
because that is gorgeous parking.
yeah, and, you know, we should be utilizing it, okay?
I'm sure they have their reasons.
Well, I've asked, it hasn't come up yet, we're about to go the next step. But how often do you see their parking available there that you could use it? I mean, just a ballpark percentage.
Oh, how often do they make it available?
No, not that they make it available. How often do you see it full and used?
Almost never.
Only when they have events.
And how often is that? And that would impact your business.
Oh, you mean it would hurt me? Is that what you mean? Or I'm not sure what you
Either
mean.
way, let's assume their parking lot was there and open on a metered basis, okay? So your customers could go pay $2 or $5, whatever, and park there, okay? How much would that help you?
With all of that.
Okay, so you're saying that the spaces
To
at
have
the
a
Ocean Center,
surface.
are you saying that
The
the
Ocean
Ocean Center
Center.
parking places were open year-round?
Yes.
I think
Yeah.
it would help.
Yeah.
To what degree?
How long is it good for?
Well, I'm
mean-
saying permanent,
Oh,
okay?
to me, it would be a great start.
It's turning into public
To me,
parking.
it would be a great start, and, you know, I guess my vision is not just all these surface lots, because land's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
I would think you might be better served by doing,
By going up,
4 levels.
okay? But My question is, would it be a significant benefit to the businesses along Main Street to have year-round public access to those parking lots?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Dan, let me follow up on that, and I agree with Teresa. It would be, because even at our store, we get affected by the concerts or whatever's going on at Peabody or the Ocean Center. But if that lot was open, that's a great point, year-round, either through metered or however, that would help the entire redevelopment area. I mean, because there's a lot of times, both our lots are full. People have a hard time finding places to park. I don't know to what extent, percentage-wise or whatever, but like Teresa said, it would be a huge help for that whole area if we could get the Ocean Center to open up that for public park year-round.
Gary?
When a previous Main Street board negotiated with Volusia County when they were looking to put the addition on the Ocean Center, we thought we had an agreement with the county for Main Street use of the lot to the west of Peabody Auditorium. As a matter of fact, there was, if you check the record, there was every understanding. Art Giles was a county councilman serving on the Main Street board at that time. Every understanding that that would happen. And there were many concessions made by the city as a trade-off to the county, including some of the infrastructure and some of the requirements that the city demanded as that construction started. I don't know why, now that the E-zone is in play and the county is directly behind the concept of the E-zone, that those discussions can't be resurrected and brought forward now, because I agree with Teresa and I agree with Dave. It's so ridiculous to drive by that area and see thousands of spaces locked up a block away. We were even talking about closing the street and having a large promenade from the parking areas to Main Street, so that people who are going to Main Street would go to those parking spaces, get out of their cars, and they wouldn't have to worry about a little narrow sidewalk. They'd have a paved promenade, very much like in front of Peabody. I think it might be worth looking at some of that information, especially as the E-zone concept moves forward, because the county is pushing very hard on the city to gentrify and improve the areas around the Ocean Center, but yet it has control of the one piece of the puzzle that would make it happen, and that's parking.
We've just merged into our next agenda item, dealing with parking.
Before we go to that,
Okay.
there was sort of a freewheeling, creative, wonderful discussion going on, but some of us were waiting for the second round.
Well, we weren't
the
finished though,
second
Gary.
round.
We weren't finished, but give me a minute. Kevin, you just made a move. Did you want to say something?
If you are going to morph into parking, I'd just like to say we are having a wrap-up meeting Friday at 8:30. I would encourage you to be there, Dan, if you'd like to be there to
8:30, correct?
talk about what the board said. I'll be happy to put you on the agenda.
Okay, or I'm planning on being there. I don't know if I need to be on the agenda, whatever your preference is.
I'd invite everybody to come.
Thank you.
Kevin,
But I wouldn't say we're done
the
yet,
chamber,
so
the-
you may not want to.
Thought you were morphing into parking.
Well, we
Well, no-
were potentially, but
So I had a follow-up question
Yeah.
for Teresa.
okay.
go ahead, Teresa.
Tracy,
Well,
has,
I'll-
Teresa.
I'll wait.
Tracy has a question.
Because actually, one of the things when we were talking about earlier, the TPA process and having the businesses who are actually here be able to do their wares, and of course, yes, it's only 500 square feet, and yes, the itinerant vendors use a lot more space, and yes, they pay a lot more money. But to me, what I'm suggesting become part of the discussion is how do we change the TPA process so the businesses are here. If part of what we're looking at is how does itinerant vending either fit or not fit, part of that discussion also needs to be, and maybe that's where I wasn't clear, but part of that discussion needs to be the TPA process. How do we make, and I wasn't talking about pricing at all, but I was talking about competitive. How do we make it competitive, an even playing field for the year-round businesses versus the come in the back of my trailer business and throw up a tent. And so I am saying, I think that all of that needs to be part of this discussion and not tie the hands of the year-round business here by our TPA process.
I appreciate that.
That's right. And I'm sorry I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Tim?
What's the fee for an itinerant merchant?
Yeah.
What's the fee?
Isn't it 700? $600.
$600.
Six and 5.
Six, okay.
I mean, if they come by Oktoberfest, it's the way it's been.
Right.
If they come by Oktoberfest, it's 6.
But
And then if they come to the same location, it's 5.
Okay.
If they're new to Bike Week, it's 6.
So for $600, somebody can come in and open a business. Now, I'm not talking about rent that they pay the landlord and all that. Someone can come in and basically get an occupational license with the city to open up for the special event. Meanwhile, just my sign permit alone is $300 a year. Not counting my tangible tax, intangible tax, property tax, all that dog gets all thrown in there. As far as, but you can't operate, or anybody, any business, your year-round business under a TPA, which we're all hindered with, the TPA 20 days a year, that's all we get
Right.
for a year-round business.
Right.
To operate under there, but you're more than willing to bring a restaurant on, not when I say you, I mean any
General.
person who has property there will bring in a restaurant, a bar, onto a piece of property that, and when you say you have to own the property, yeah, as long as you own an adjacent building, you can keep tearing down buildings all the way down, as long as you own that one piece of property that ties into it.
And that building is open and operating 250 days a year.
And I'd really like to know, and Tracy, you're not the person I'm talking about, because you are. I know Dirty Harry's is open, I know all those businesses are open. But you go down 1 block down, 2 blocks out, I don't know who's counting the days. I don't know who's counting the hours of the days. Because they're not. I go to Brooks Cleaners once a week. I drive down the street all the time, and I see the same businesses closed. And I tell you, when Bike Week comes, they're open. Okay. There's talk about not enough parking on Main Street, but when you invite 500,000 people to come into town, we take up every space, every parking lot, and we put a tent in.
Right.
So you're going to complain about not enough parking, but you fill up your parking lots to where your customers are supposed to come with tents, and then they can't park there, and then you say not enough parking.
Right.
I provide parking. I know Dave provides parking. I mean, for his businesses, we have businesses. We know that our businesses need parking, so we provide parking. The Ocean Center fills up. The parking lot's full. I have to go outside and police my lot, and I get people to come in. They say, "Oh, we want to run across the street to Starbucks." I say, "Okay, go." I have to police my parking lot to make sure I have spaces flowing for myself and not my tenants.
I know exactly what you mean.
But to say that, there's a lack of parking, but you can fill up your whole parking lot and close it off to everybody,
Well, believe it
you can't have it both ways.
Well, that week, the entire Ocean Center parking lot is open and available and charges, it's open that week.
Yeah, it is open that week. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, number one, for $600 to come in, and people have told me, well, Tim, move 1 block over to Main Street and rent a space.
Yeah.
This is one of the arguments I let people always tell me. Well, why don't you come down there? Why should I pay $38,000 a year just in property taxes alone? Why should I have to go get more equipment and tents and this and that to compete for an event? Bike Week used to be about 30% of my business, but little by little, it's all been siphoned off. And right now, there's an event going on, the cheerleading competition. This is my 5 busiest days out of the year. Bike Week doesn't even show up in my top 10 anymore because I can't compete. I cannot compete. And we have conditioned the customer that comes here. They are in my store day after day. And you know what I hear them say? They say, don't shop in here and don't shop now. Wait till Saturday and Sunday because the vendors are dumping their stuff to leave. Okay? It's like Pavlov's dog. They know that it's going to happen. So they just don't do it. And you can just see it. And now, when it rained that first week, it was even worse. And just like Dave said, you know what? We might have less vendors, but we don't have less vendor space. You know, it's just every square inch has been filled up for the last how many years, and it's still filled up. So we've got less vendors coming in because for $600 you get 500 square feet or you get 5,000 square feet. It doesn't make a difference by size or area that they encompass.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You're absolutely.
Is that, am I correct?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just wasn't sure, because, so I mean, to say, so it doesn't matter. I mean, there's a whole square footage thing. All I know is you know, my father and my mother are my landlords. I know what I pay rent, I pay according to square footage. I know my property taxes are according to square footage. You get an occupational license, you come into the city, you know, everything's linear footage, this and that, but $600, we sell our soul. For $600.
Property owners pay an application fee plus
How much is the application fee?
It's $300 plus what, 12 cents per square foot, 25.
How much is the cafe per license per square foot, do you know?
It was $2, wasn't it?
$1.
So to provide seating.
That, and that's year round, right?
Right.
That's for the year.
But still, so for a year-round business to provide outside seating for this cafe thing that we're talking about in the E-zone, in the ULI study before that, for that atmosphere we want year-round, we charge $1 a year for someone just for that. But for the privilege of being able to use your property for an unsafe thing. If I want to pull a TPA, all I can do is sell what I sell inside my store. But for somebody to come and have the privilege of doing something they don't do any other time of the year, I don't understand how every restaurant in town does not go nuts over Bike Week.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? I know my tenants a block away, Baskin Robbins, Domino's Pizza, all those guys, they would love to be able to set up a barbecue stand outside. But Baskin Robbins, they know people, they wanted to come and put barbecue outside. They used to want to do it during BCR. They can't do it. They tried to do it and they were shut down. Right? Right, couldn't. Yeah.
Selective COVID.
So, but for 12 cents, a square foot, you can do a legal activity, because the cafe seating is not an illegal activity. We waive Article 17, and we allow illegal activity to be legal for 3 weeks out of the year. And that should be, if anything, we give it away. There should be a premium put on that. If it's $1 a square foot for cafe seating, it should be $5 a square foot for outside vending of something that you don't do the rest of the year. We're operating under a TPA. Or if Bike Week is so, if itinerant vending is such a great thing, let's open it for the whole redevelopment.
So are you saying tie it to the square footage of the vendor?
I think, yeah. I think
My hot dog vendor would love that.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
It only takes up this much space.
No, I'm talking about the 12-cent charge that the city charges the landlord.
That is based on square footage. That is based on square footage.
12 cents.
Oh, you want that $1?
Yeah, 12
Oh,
cents.
okay, get your pound of flesh, but will that cure the problem?
No, I'm saying it's not enough. It doesn't create a level playing field. It's not fair.
Of course it's not fair.
Dave said it. I operate next to the Ocean Center. Okay, I can pull out a sand wedge and hit a golf ball and hit Main Street. Okay. It's not fair that I have to abide by all the guidelines and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks out of the year when I sit there and I'm dying for business. I'm coming out of the slowest time of the year, and I sit there and I watch all these people pass by, and I can close at 9 o'clock at night because there's nobody there. I used to convert my whole store over. Back in the day, you used to come through my store, and remember, I would be able to convert my whole store over. It does not make dollar cents for me to do it because I cannot compete with these guys. And I know you say, well, we don't want to get into price. There's no way not to get into price when my expenses keep going up and my piece of the pie gets smaller because I can have somebody for $600 come in and compete with me. That's all.
I have one
Thanks, Tim.
You cannot understand what that part.
You what?
He said a pitching wedge.
We're going to start calling him Bubba.
Yeah, so I
not
can
going backwards,
assume
we're
then
coming
from this discussion tonight that the chamber as the sponsor and the task force as the way it happens, you feel that the current events on Main Street as currently choreographed are compatible and will be compatible in the future with the E-zone?
No, that's not what I said, Gary.
Well, no, I'm
We-
not, I'm just,
no,
I
and I'm-
didn't
and
say
I'm-
you said it, I'm
that's-
just
no.
asking that as a question.
I'm saying that we have specific duties as the task force, as outlined by the guidelines, as outlined by the resolution. Code enforcement isn't part of it. Policing isn't part of it. We'll be happy to have that discussion with you, but ultimately it's going to fall on the departments that are in charge of that. But if anybody here would like to come have this discussion with the task force and even have a special meeting with this group, an accommodation meeting, I'm all for it. Let's do that.
Well, yeah, we're arguing over whether or not the cart or the horse comes first. I'm just saying that you obviously, from your discussion, feel that these events will continue to be compatible in the Main Street area as it morphs itself into an E-zone, which is now getting defined in rather specific terms. And if I think I understood you correctly, that there really is no incompatibility, no generic built-in problem here that's just eventually going to explode, a fuse, for example, I'd like to know that, because I think that makes a lot of difference to the way I think about the decisions or the recommendations that we're gonna be asked to make to the City Commission, acting as the CRA. I mean, will these continue to be compatible events in the future from your perspective?
You want to take that one?
Yeah, I think that in the future, it'll be compatible with the guidelines set by the city council.
Okay. All right.
Well, your answer is yes, then. You
No,
think
my
that?
answer's not yes.
Oh.
My answer is.
Your answer is no, then.
We will continue to be compatible with the guidelines
There-
set by the city council, the city of Daytona Beach.
Okay, and the chamber and the task force is comfortable with that?
Gary, no.
Okay.
No, okay. Obviously, by your statement, you don't think that the bike event is compatible with the E-zone plan.
No, I'm asking.
I'm
I'm asking
You absolutely said that, which is fine.
No, I
which is
did
fine.
not say that.
Okay.
Do you think it's compatible?
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
I think that we can have multiple signatures. I don't think we need to be tied into one. I think we can be a race event. Do you think that the racing events on ISB are compatible with the ISB activity?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
They're the
So-
most carefully patrolled, and they are. I haven't heard one
Yeah,
negative.
we changed it from the way it used to be in the
do
90s.
you remember the itinerant vending on?
I do.
On
I do.
1792.
Our task force is just like this body. We're an advisory board. If you want to make some advice
Okay.
to the city
If-
commission, please do so. If you want to come to our task force, which is an advisory board, please do, and we'll be happy to have this discussion.
Since you asked Gary, I'll answer for myself. Do I think that Bike Week, the way itinerant vending is currently handled, is it compatible with E-zone? I will say no.
Okay. And I would recommend to the city commission that those guidelines be changed, and that we do something with the itinerant vending. Maybe it's a joint committee, maybe it's a joint study, but do it. Because both of our powers, what limited amount there is, are derived from the city commission.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, obviously this is a discussion item, but if we're moving for some kind of action, can we talk to, first of all, from what I've heard most people say, is talking about doing an equal level playing field, incorporating the TPAs that's A1A into Main Street. But the question I have, because there's also a difference between the T-shirt vendor versus some of the food vendors or what have you. And I understand, Tim just earlier said, I don't understand how a lot of the restaurants are, really upset, over some of the food vendors that do occur. There are times where the event's so big you can't even handle, the amount of, let's say, the demand that's out there for some of the beverages or what have you. Is there? What I'm trying to get at, is there some way that we could have like a certain square, could we look at doing a TPA and allowing a certain square footage? Like right now, the TPAs are 500 square feet. Is there a way that we could incorporate a certain amount of square footage towards retail and a certain amount square footage towards food vending, you know, and it'd be a different, but you'd have to still have that business. So in other words, like in Teresa's case, she would be able to have, she operates a bar, she would be able to have the stands that she has in front of her businesses right now, and I'm talking about the Full Moon Saloon, where it does have the bars, you know, that are out there selling and stuff like that, and she'll still be able to have her band playing outside and everything, as long as they, you know, allow you to sleep at night and everything like that. You know, I'm trying to say, can we explore the possibility of just, because I don't want to kill the event either, but I want, but there could be a set of guidelines for food vending versus for T-shirt vending, and you know they could be.
The one of the biggest problems I see with respect to how Bike Week has evolved on Main Street is that it's more or less not managed at all.
Right.
Okay? You've got all the different operations doing what they're wanting to do on their piece of property with no real coordination. I mean, that's resulting in, and I hate to keep harping on the bands, but I'm sorry, but you got 4 bands within 300 feet of each other all trying to play against each other.
Yeah.
It's, and 2 on 1 property. How do you justify putting 2 bands within 100 feet of each other on the same piece of property playing at the same time?
I would agree with
Okay,
that. Yeah.
so the total lack of coordination, you know, I could see where, and I'm walking down and I'm seeing the same sausage and the same, you know, same food, vendor after vendor after vendor. You go to other events.
They have different,
I tell you, on the
very different.
the Friday of the second Friday of Bike Week, my wife was going over the Winter Park Art Festival, so I said, okay, went to that. The vendor selection was phenomenal. The food was phenomenal. Okay? And it wasn't just a sausage, pepper, and onion. And it wasn't the same old thing. We've got the same old thing everywhere along Main Street. And, you know, the people are getting older and the same people and less bikes and all this, and it's dying. If we don't do something to reinvigorate Bike Week on Main Street with something fresh, something that's going to draw in some of the younger, some of the more foreign tourists, more upscale, you know, some of the women who are a big growing sector of the biking community, you know, why don't we do things that are going to focus on some of these special niches that may help bring some people back and up the level of the clientele and bring down the age a little bit, so we're going to have some longevity and have it, I think, a more productive, profitable Bike Week, and one that we can control and manage. I think it's a lack of management and a lack of diversity that is going to be the demise of Bike Week on Main Street if we don't do something about it.
I understand, but we're trying to, we're having the discussion item so that way we could point staff in a certain direction to come back with some kind of recommendations for us to explore.
Well, here's what, from what I've picked up tonight. Number one, we don't have the guidelines in front of us. We need to get those and to us for the next meeting so we can take a look at what the current guidelines are, because we can't be recommending anything until we have looked at those guidelines. Also, with respect to the TPA process and maybe some interaction between those as to maybe there should be some revisions. And then also the parking issue, which is coming up next. So, you know, the idea was just a good discussion. I think we've had a very healthy discussion.
One item that we haven't discussed, though, and I'll just throw this out, is should the TPA be a fixed 500 square feet, or should it be a percentage of the actual footprint of the building?
Let's
Well,
discuss
until we have
that.
the TPA, because not everybody here knows it the way you know it.
Yeah.
So until
let's bring that back
they
and
have
get
the
educated and
rules.
discuss
Okay,
it.
that's fine. Okay,
And-
see, I didn't know what was expected from us. I didn't know if we were supposed to come up with a motion, like, or just say, Reed, you handle it for us.
And actually,
Okay.
I think what Kevin suggested is really, I think everybody's sort of spinning their wheels to have 3 different conversations going on with 3 different groups. I think a joint workshop, discussion, whatever, with the task force, the commission, and this group, with what this group brings to bear, somehow doing that, and just having this kind of discussion and brainstorming and working with that, To
But
me, the
before we do
time is
that,
right.
we
I
need to
know,
be educated a
we
little
need to
more.
know more, but I think down the road that's, it's not gonna happen between now and the next time you guys are doing that, you know. I mean, I know the events go on, but I think at some point in this process, that would be incredibly helpful, because the commission deals with this at a different level too. And the only way this board is gonna understand that is to hear from the commissioners.
And Teresa, I would like to see more feedback and more from here, from some of the Main Street merchants and such, okay? To, you know, if we're gonna have an informed discussion about how to resolve some things, we need to have some of them here, okay?
Or at the workshop that we're gonna have.
Well, at a workshop, yeah, but I mean,
Or here as part of the
Yeah.
next
or part of the,
discussion, if they're able
yeah,
to
or
do
even
it.
at this, if we're gonna start talking TPAs and things like this, and, you know, I'd like to see, you know, perhaps a few more of them, and then we can talk and stuff too. Because it's gotta be a 2-3-way street here going on, and we got the city and we got the county, we need to get in the loop too on it. But really, you know, really would like, you know, I thought we might have a huge crowd, but, you know, I would like to see and get some feedback from some of the other business operations and such on there too. I think that would be constructive.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to Paul's earlier point, the guidelines do cover the entire city, not just Main Street. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to have a discussion with the other CRA boards. You've got the downtown board, you've got the midtown board.
I think
So
we're
all of them would have
focusing
to
on
be-
Main Street
Right,
right now and the
right.
issues
Yeah.
there and the guidelines as they affect that, and
Right.
And the TPA rules are citywide, not
Right.
just in the
we
redevelopment
understand
zone.
that
Okay.
too.
Right.
Appreciate it. Before we move on, Reed, did you want to make any comments or have any input?
No, I just have a lot of information to get you. So we'll
And
do
you
that.
know what we expect from you now, right?
Paul, any last words? Guidance?
Things we haven't thought about. Lots.
I would encourage you to listen to the audio of the City Commission's fee workshop, where they had some of the same concerns and some of the same comments. They have asked for another meeting about fees. Somebody mentioned a horse and a cart. I would strongly encourage you, if they meet before your next meeting, to try to get plugged into where this commission is coming from. I can't tell you right now. We didn't have the mayor at the fee workshop. He was ill that day. But when we have a full commission, and we talk about fees, it invariably goes off into everything you've talked about today.
All right.
I have learned a lot today. I've been reminded, though, how much, as a personal guide, I'm relying on the E-zone plan. And we talk about the plan. I'm asking a rhetorical question here. How many of you have read the plan? I've read it 9 times because we had 8 drafts that had to be redone. I've read and read and read that plan, and if you read that plan and we follow that plan and we do what the consultant said, then over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, these things start to work themselves out. You don't necessarily have to re-engineer Bike Week, just follow the plan. Do what they tell you to do. Beautify Main Street so that it's not attractive only to bikers. Soften it up, make it so that women feel safe walking up and down Main Street. There's all sorts of things to do to make it more mainstream that aren't necessarily expensive that we can do right now. We talk about better managing parking. One of the principal things in the E-zone plan. There's all sorts of things in that plan that, again, I think as a suggestion I might make, instead of talking so much about the negatives of Bike Week, let's all get together and talk about what we can do to implement the E-zone plan. And as a result of that, Bike Week will start to change.
Paul,
That was really our impetus here, is to try to get
And-
E-zone compliant and move towards that as a goal.
and Paul, not to throw out another, a wild idea, but if there's, I know that the Corbett building is currently occupied by, I guess, is it Harley Davidson or is it just
It's Tom
temporary?
Russell.
Excuse me?
Tom Russell, the T-shirt guy.
Okay. If there's any way that we could try to get like a Ripley's Believe It or Not or one of those I mean, I go to the IAPA show all the time.
Well, let me come
I
back to
walk.
the comment made before. The property's for sale for $4.5 million,
Right.
it appraised at 2.5. It appraised at 2.5 because that's the value of the land when you don't take the income approach. But Archie and Tom, who have been in my office 100 times, want to sell that property for about $4.5 million. I'd love to do something with that.
Okay,
Because of the money they make on the itinerant vending.
Exactly.
We almost paid 8 for it at one time.
We were thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like okay. All
But
right,
if,
wait.
you know, my parting shot is please read the E-zone plan, because again, if, you know, they've got.
And when
kind of
you say
easy things
read
to
the
do,
E-zone
first
plan,
things to
you're
do,
talking
long
about
range things to do.
You're talking about this part of both of them, the volume
Not the
one that
research
talks
part.
about the.
Well, please, if I
The
may.
plan itself.
There's a back portion of this that's relevant, there's a lot of data section you can just skip. If you know most of that and the back portion of this, you've got the idea.
Okay.
Yeah. It's important.
Oh, by the way, it says you're up here, and it was brought up earlier. On the sidewalk cafe, we actually did a study one time as to all the neighboring cities, and the average sidewalk cafe per square foot in Florida is around 25 cents. We actually upped ours to $1 to help fund fireworks. I don't know if you remember that back then. Okay, but anyways, but I'll just bring up the past.
Everything
really.
comes back to fireworks.
I know. For me, it does.
Thank you, Paul. Did we have any public that chose to speak to the discussion dealing with Main Street? John?
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I agree with what you have, and I think you missed the point entirely. You want to redevelop Main Street, however, Main Street, you keep cutting its legs off every time it wanted to do anything. Talk to Dino. When they took cars off the beach, did it help you a lot? Did you gain a lot of people when they took the cars off the beach and they closed Main Street? That is an issue.
No,
when
not
they
initially.
did that, no, that was an issue. Dino was the one who fought for years for parking. We had 175 public parking spaces at the Hilton Marriott Adams Mark lot that was open to the public, but the public couldn't get to use it. And then the city gave it away so the Adams Mark could expand. You had that public parking there, and we gave it away. You all had public parking on the south side on 3 different lots, and you gave it away. All right? You are constantly hurting Main Street, and you're saying, well, how come you're not surviving? How come you're living on this itinerant vending? We constantly hurt them and then say, okay, how come you're not thriving? There was a discussion, and if you remember, Tom Guest specifically said to the county, before we allowed them to put in that huge parking lot, will it be open for Main Street parking? And they said yes, and we have done nothing about it. They told us we could have it, and then they lock it. Peabody wanted it before their events. The county said, okay, we'll open it up 5 minutes before the show started. What value is it to Peabody 5 minutes before the show? The county hurts us. All right? We have to pay for police protection. At one point, we had 2 officers on Beachside. 2 officers is not a lot to help a community. You pay for code enforcement officers out of the CRA funds. Why are you saying you needed one? You're paying for it. Why didn't you get it? I understand you don't want to look at your numbers. You don't want to look at the funding. But when you realize you're paying for police officers and you're not getting them, you're paying for code enforcement and you're not getting them, when you wanted a parking garage, remember Darrell Hunter? $3 million parking garage on the old Hilton lot? Well, that went nowhere. They put the Main Street parking garage at Ocean Walk. All right? Dino said, that's a long distance. Is that really for Main Street? And the city said, yes, that's Main Street parking. That's your garage. These things come back to hurt you a lot. One person that owns a business on Main Street, we tried the idea of keeping Main Street open year-round. She loses money keeping her business open. She'll go through 250 days and not make money to pay for electric, water, gas, and staffing. But she has to do that because she's got vending. So let's find a way that vending, because you go to any carnival, any event in the city, they all have food coming in, they all have rides coming in, etc. This street is no different than Duval Street in Key West. People don't go to Key West because of Duval Street. They go to it because it's there. People don't not go to New Orleans because there's a Bourbon Street. They go there because there is a Bourbon Street. All we need to do is find a way to make our main street our Bourbon Street. Thank you.
Okay. Reed, if we can follow up at the next meeting with the guidelines and a little education on the TPA process, I would appreciate that.
Glad to do it.
Next, discussion on parking. Do you have a little presentation on that?
I do, but before we do
Thanks,
that.
guys, very much.
Thank you.
See you Friday.
Thank you,
See you
Kevin.
Friday morning, 8:30.
Thank you, Bob. If I could, before proceeding, indulge the board and ask that, because there's an item that I was going to have on my redevelopment report, and I have a couple of gentlemen here from a company, and they walked in this afternoon, proposed a development idea that I think, because they were going to be here this evening, asked them to drop in and see if what they're proposing to do may be of interest to the board, and see what your thoughts are, because it's a little complicated, but if you'll bear with me, I'll
Any objection to Reed
jump
letting
into it.
someone with respect to his redevelopment projects update go at this time? No objection? Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm going to see if I can pull up the section I'm looking for. There we go. The first part of my report is to let you know that there's the corner of Silver and A1A that you see the red marking there, a boundary, and I have something to hand out as well, if we could just pass these along. It's a site plan that's being proposed to take the existing.
Can I ask one quick thing? I'm sorry.
Yes.
We're not voting on a site plan tonight.
No,
This is
no,
just
no, no.
discussion.
This is just
Okay.
this is just a
When you
heads up
started
and
saying that- okay.
this in the C. You let us know.
Feedback.
Yeah, it's just feedback right now. That's all we want to do, because
Okay.
they were in our office,
Okay.
and we thought, well, this one is, tough to just say yes or no. Okay.
By the way, where is Boswick Avenue to that?
Pardon me?
Boswick Avenue, is that the
Okay.
first?
It's two south or one
It's-
two south.
it's
You have
to the
Silver
south.
Beach
It's
and
not-
then Bostwick.
This is
One south of Silver Beach.
okay. This is the corner, the southwest corner of Silver and A1A,
South.
Silver
west.
Beach. Okay, that's the furthest southern extent of the South Atlantic boundaries. And in fact, you can see the shaded area is South Atlantic, and a corner of that property that Sunoco owns is not in our South Atlantic area. But they own these three properties combined, one property which is vacant, and the other, one has a building on it, the southernmost one that's not in our redevelopment area, that is, again, owned by Sunoco. That's a residence. And then you also have the gas station itself, which was closed not too long ago, with the idea that they would like to come back and fix that up. So what they've done, and you have now a proposal that they brought to us. Here's our dilemma. And by the way, this is the zoning that shows we've got a combination of zoning, and that corner piece that's not in the South Atlantic area would have to, under the current proposal, be rezoned. So that'd be one step that have to be considered by Sunoco. It would also have a land use that's retail, and certainly makes this a viable redevelopment area in terms of commercial of some kind. And then if there is a rezoning, and so that would support it. Again, this is what you have in front of you as a site plan. And then
What is it a site plan for?
Gas station.
A gas
a gas station, but it's not here's the interpretation. The interpretation is that this is, by definition, after we met today with Colleen Miles and about the zoning, is this is a convenience store.
Yeah.
Convenience stores are prohibited on this side of A1A.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's just a particular prohibition, because right now it's been operating as a, if you will, a service station. It has the subsidiary convenience store type of items that are in there. But
There's no 7-Eleven over there?
no. So again, it can't fall under the definition of vehicular service the way it's proposed. But at that point, said, well, you know what? We're kind of maybe still going back and forth about the definition. We could just say no. Take your dice and go home. Or what do we want to do with this area? And sorry, I'm just kind of throwing this in front of you, but I want to see what you think we should do with this, because there is an opportunity to maybe look at either accommodating this in some way or working something out.
Go back to the diagram. Go back to the.
Okay.
There. Okay.
Yeah.
So the A1A is what's going across the top.
No.
That's Silver Beach.
In north,
Or
top to the bottom is A1A.
Do you have a pointer?
A1A is going
The
north,
ocean
up
is
and
to
down.
your right on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that's Silver Beach.
I mean, does this property abut Phantom Fireworks? Just to get the,
No, it's two properties down.
Close to the fire.
Big white building is the fire.
the white
Right.
building is the fireworks,
bottom of the screen.
the bottom of the screen, okay.
the
Just to
big
give you a.
Okay, all right, so where is Boswick? If Silver Beach is.
Boswick is right where, Phantom Fireworks is on the corner of Boswick and A1A.
Below, and then that median is the street that runs.
Oh, wait,
behind
okay,
it.
I see.
You see that with green?
Okay, so
I
you don't
see.
see
It's-
Boswick there.
Boswick is, it's
It's-
to the left.
It's right below the screen. It's, if that building is Phantom Fireworks, Boswick is on the corner of that building and A1A, because I used to own that
What is
1226
this
South
street over
Atlantic.
here with the median in the middle of it?
Yeah, then what's that? That's Ruger.
Ruger, okay.
So that's one over, that is one west of A1A?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, where is the condominium that?
Right
Okay,
there,
I
right to
had
the
a-
left,
Yeah.
with the shadow cast.
Okay,
That's
no, hold on.
That's the town.
You see the northernmost red line,
Yeah.
okay, that's running east and west.
That's
Where
Silver
is the condo that's at the corner? There's a condominium
I'm
project.
correct, Ruger and Silver Beach.
Right
To the left.
Right
That's right
there.
behind it. That's the square building right behind it.
Yeah, to the
Right
left
to the
of the
left
right.
of the red.
Right there.
The yellow square, swimming pool?
See where the swimming pool is?
Uh-huh.
Go above the swimming pool.
You see the big square?
You can
That's-
dive off the
that's
roof
not
into
the
the
condo.
swimming pool.
Which one
No,
are you talking about on the
there's a
ocean?
condo on the corner of just behind the gas station that's there right now.
That's the
That's
lot.
it, that
That's
white,
it.
that
That's it.
square. And the old, to the east of that, then that's where the Copacabana
Oh, you're looking at the
used to
wrong
be.
Right.
swimming pool. Look at
Okay.
the swimming pool to
All
the
right,
right,
I got
too.
it,
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, and then across the street from the red is the big empty lot with the white fence
Oh,
where everybody parks on A1A.
Copacabana,
Right.
okay.
That swimming pool that I see right there is not the one at the condo.
The one at the top of the screen?
You know what I'm saying?
There's two swimming pools. I can
Up
see
here.
The one next to, see the little orange square?
No, no.
Okay, well, that's yellow, but okay. But yeah, but
That's
yeah,
what pool is
that's the condo. That's the little condo you're talking
Yeah,
about,
it
that's down
is.
Silver Beach. That's it.
That is it.
That's it.
And that's the Silver Beach Club on the corner, the other blue.
All
All
right.
right, I'm sorry. I
Reed,
just
my
was-
2 cents worth on this is
It's a better
we are in need of quality gas stations on the beach side. We're in need of, quality convenience stores in that area. Okay? I think it looks like a good fit there. It's on Silver Beach. I think we have a need there.
I think we have a need for development.
Well, that
Well,
too,
yeah.
but I mean, I think we have a
Yeah.
specific need for this.
Right.
But Dan, wait a
What
minute,
are- what are
there's
the
a
types of
convenience store
zoning?
not too far from this piece of property going south of 7-Eleven.
There's a 7-Eleven, and there may be a need, but you're talking about rezoning and allowing a prohibited use without having a single neighbor out here, because
wouldn't
they have no idea
No,
that
no,
this is, and I realize that's not, it's just discussion. But quite frankly, being close to a convenience gas station as a neighbor, that's not a great thing to be close to. A gas station's one thing, but it's loitering heaven. And
Lights are on.
again, it's depending upon, especially if it's I don't even know if they're allowed 24 hours. I don't know what the hours are. When we had just the 7-Eleven down the street, even without the gas station, that was one of the big reasons we had the traffic calming. It was a huge problem, especially with late bar openings on Seabreeze, and then they'd go get their ice cream when the bars closed, and then they'd come back into the neighborhood with their beer and their ice cream. I do think, I mean, I'm just the opposite of you with convenience stores anywhere near that close to a neighborhood without
But
some
it's-
kind of buffer
let's see what
discussion.
they
Well,
say.
it's also on A1A and Silver Beach, a major thoroughfare, and, I mean,
You're asking for rezoning, you're asking for a prohibited use on the west side, which is where the neighborhood is. Ruger is beautiful. It goes right into Bostwick on both sides of Ruger.
Yep.
I mean, that would be a huge change
Let's see
to a
what the
really
neighbors
stable
say.
neighborhood.
Yeah, I say bring the neighborhood in.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Move this forward.
Well, I mean,
Let's
That's
move this
a
forward
huge
and see what
change.
they-
Isn't there just like, not even 2 blocks north and 2 blocks
There's a
south? There's a
7-Eleven
7-Eleven
on either side.
On either side. There's a 7-Eleven gas station just north of it, and
Yeah.
then, is it a block and a half?
There's a
It's a
7-Eleven.
block and a
Yeah.
half north of Silver Beach.
That's not a gas station, but the one north of it is a gas station.
Mhm.
Right. There's one, the north one is right across from what used to be the Treasure Island,
Yeah.
and the south
No,
one.
No, it's further,
no.
actually, it's further south than that.
Yes.
Oh, you're talking about
It's
another
like
one.
one
The
street.
7-Eleven north is across the street from the Beach Club condominiums.
Right.
The one south is across from the new Holiday Inn motel, the motel they just redid, it's new Holiday Inn Suites or something.
Okay.
That doesn't have a gas station. I used to live there.
Well, let's-
Could we, I mean, we have the gentleman here from Sunoco, and maybe they can at least explain what, again, the detail of their design is, their plan, their intent. Would that be okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Gentlemen, would you please approach?
and they know there may be neighborhood concerns, so.
Right.
Gentlemen, name and address, please.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much, and thanks for the earlier meetings, very helpful. Clayton McCain. I work for Sunoco, 1916 Dorset Road. I actually live in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm down visiting from, excuse me, Philadelphia is where our headquarters are located. And
I'm Rolando Bethard. I'm the senior construction engineer here in Florida, and I'm out of Tampa, Florida, and the address is 203 South Falkenberg Road in Tampa.
First, quick question, is this proposed to be a corporate store?
Yes, it is.
we recently acquired 11 facilities in the area. Some of them have already been re-imaged, but we're looking at doing raise and rebuilds at a number of these. As you know,
I've been seeing some activity.
a number of them are closed, as is this one. So we would like to come in and build a new facility, new store, new canopy. Yes, they will all be company-owned, to answer your question. So we will have direct control of these facilities.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's also important to say that it's company-owned and operated.
Yes.
So we're not going to have a dealer in there or a third-party type individual. It will be operated by Sunoco.
Have you done any testing on the soil to see if there was any contamination from the earlier gas station there?
They have done some testing on it, and right now, from what I understand, it's deemed to be clean.
Did we read, this is a question for you, did we do, years ago on the planning board, we looked at doing a Brownsville designation to certain areas of the city. Did it ever go through?
Yes. It's
downtown.
designated as brownfield.
In what?
It is in our brownfield.
Okay, it
Yes,
is in
sir.
the Brownsville designation, okay.
Well, gentlemen, you've heard a potential concern relative to the neighborhood and potential buffering and all that kind of thing. Could you perhaps explain how you might be able to address some of those issues?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh. This table here, and if you, pull it up from the bottom, pull it up from the bottom, and then there should be little legs, I think, that come Then they can get it right.
I apologize because I did.
And they have a camera right overhead, so.
Yeah, I think he's moving the camera right over you.
Is that right? Is that good?
Just hold still and let them do their job.
Yeah, I apologize, I've already started scribbling on this, but based on our earlier meeting. No, we understand a lot of the issues that we went over today, and obviously, this being critical, as you had mentioned, being residential, zone residential, we would certainly, just to give you what we're proposing, a new store, it's about a little over 2,400 square feet, brand new store. Simple, we call it a dive island, but it's a 4 dispenser, canopy overhead, 8 fueling positions, 2 curb cuts, one on the corner and one on A1A. We understand this being a concern, certainly would look at that.
Oh, yeah.
We understand buffering, we would certainly look at that. But when you look at the site layout, you can see in here are existing underground storage tanks. And we would hope to continue to reuse those. And so when this site was designed, my senior design engineer, who's back up in Philadelphia, he couldn't make it down, but when we laid this out, the idea was to obviously retain the existing underground storage tanks. And then from our industry standard, we just basically will align the canopy. There's this kind of, you'll see this just about everywhere, canopy aligned parallel to the road, and then building setback from the canopy. We usually have critical dimensions, 35 feet for spacing and for cars moving back and forth, and then backing out of the parking spaces, coming out of the dispensers. So when this was all laid out, it was kind of laid out with, again, retaining those underground storage tanks in place, and then having the store and the canopy oriented towards the main road. By doing that, of course, it does dump us into the residential area. Thought that maybe we could juggle this thing around a little bit and realign some things, but when I started doing that, it doesn't really line up well, and we'd have to certainly go back and take a look at it. But again, our focus is on, by retaining these tanks, it really does save us a lot of money. We really don't want to pull them out. We don't want to install new, although we are adding a tank. But that seems to be the focus from our design standpoint.
What about issues of lighting and buffering with respect to the neighborhoods and
Again,
things like that?
earlier meeting, we certainly understand that there are the buffering. We would certainly.
Well, that's
You
buffering
keep
towards
looking at A1A. We're talking about where
We're talking
people
about
live.
the neighborhood.
Would you want to be the
I'm
next
sorry.
door
Oh,
neighbor?
no, absolutely. There was some discussion about putting up the wall and we would certainly.
Shield the lighting and.
Yeah, I mean, again, landscaping, we thought we could maybe adjust our retention pond some.
Store hours or what on your kinds of,
All of our stores are
24 hours.
One thing I wanted to address concerning the lights, we only use LEDs, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but the LEDs.
I recently have become very familiar with them.
The LEDs are very good as far as glare is concerned and all that, because they're very much directed downwards, so that's all we use now is LEDs.
A quick question on lights and turtle compliance. Are you up to speed on that, and would your lights cause potential turtle issues?
I'm not.
It was recently mentioned by Lee, but I don't know too much.
Well, one good thing is that the turtles do not see LED lighting. Okay, but I don't know.
LED lighting, I think it is.
Certain wavelengths.
Yes, certain. Okay, the wavelengths that are over 600 nanometers.
We would certainly provide a photometrics drawing for illumination.
Well, there's DEP and county issues with respect to the turtle lighting, and because of some prior settlements with the feds and everything in this county that you need to deal with to make sure you're not going to be in violation. And what happens is usually people go, well, let's turn the lights back away from the beach. Well, that would be shining them back into the neighborhoods and such, and so you have a...
Right.
To Rolando's earlier point, everything is flush mounted. It is LED. It is direct down lighting. We would certainly do all the photometrics. It's very energy efficient. We could shield them if, again, they are flush mounted, so.
I think Gary had a specific question.
Yeah, do you know if the station that was on this location previously, what were its hours? It was not a
I don't know.
24.
No, it wasn't a 24.
You know, Reed, do you know?
No.
It was not a 24-hour station.
I don't.
And basically, this would just, you're not talking obviously any vehicle servicing. This is just gas and convenience store.
Reed, without looking at the location, I mean, we saw a glimpse of it, but I mean, this entrance into almost looks like it's, at the corner, and I just don't see. I know from experience. I mean, isn't there a certain amount of linear feet buffer that you're supposed to have?
You're not changing the entrance that's there now, right?
It's there now.
Yeah.
The entrance there is there now.
Oh, it's there now. Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. Okay.
The concept plan indicates reusing it after a discussion this earlier this afternoon. We understand the
Okay.
sensitivity of it. We talked about pulling it back. But again, we have to also keep in mind, cognizant of how our delivery fuel
Okay.
truck gets in, gets to the fuel tanks, is able to drop and then safely egress from the site. So we would certainly take all that into consideration, but we also understand the need to look at readjusting that curb cut there on that corner, certainly.
Well,
How do you arrive at 2,400 square feet? That's as big as my house.
It's actually 2455. We've
That's-
gone through a number of iterations of we've kind of been going through a lot of different changes in our store. We have landed on a 2455 and a 3159. Really comes from marketing. The type of offerings, food offerings, we don't prepare anything in the store. It's all prepackaged food items. We do have hot dog and the coffee at most. That's a marketing question. I
So
don't
much
know how-
shelving, you got so much
Yeah,
product,
there-
so many shelves, and it fits in a
again,
certain
I think
area.
it does come to the
I mean, that's
size of it
huge.
and, the traffic and the volume and how much we think we can project doing volume-wise.
And all this is the size of the property also determines the size of the store.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
over here, we could not put 3159 because it just would.
Mr. Chairman, I think at least I am interested in bringing this forward. Let's take it the next step forward, and that would be
Inviting
getting
the-
finding if there is any pushback. You could have a neighborhood that would love to be able to walk to a food store that's open 20 hours a day. We don't know. That's what we have
I
to
use
find
mine
out.
all the time.
Yeah.
By the way, Reed.
Let me, can we do that without putting these gentlemen to a huge amount of expense, having to draw up plans and everything, and actually wait for an advertised thing? I mean, is there a way to do a mailing, just a simple mailing?
Right.
And hear about this? Because, I mean, I don't want them spending a huge amount of money on engineering and architect and all of this to get that far without the neighbors being able to.
Right.
But
It's
mailing is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mail, we would, and we've recommended this a number of times to follow a certain procedure we use for mailing. One, in fact, it's a draft now in the Land Development Code rewrite to
Okay.
have these neighborhood meetings on.
Okay.
And it would say exactly what's
Sure.
being proposed. It wouldn't just say a rezoning. Well, I mean, it would say this is what's being proposed, come talk, right?
Yeah, it can be specific.
Yeah.
So I think that if they want to continue to pursue it, I'm hearing that we're open-minded. It's not just a straight prohibition here. If we have something of quality and that the neighborhood seems to think is
And one thing you ought to look into also on the buffering, I mean, there were some car dealerships on Nova that when they built the wall behind their businesses, they put some of the landscaping on the opposite side to kind of even further buffer the situation,
Absolutely.
And even, higher wall. I mean, there are some things that have been done close to neighborhoods that have decorative. We're not talking about just a blank concrete block.
Famous
Right.
Steve's,
Yeah, there have been a number, so I mean, it would be.
And I have to
yeah,
also.
Architectural featuring, even some breakup of the back of the building, but I mean, all of that would be, I think, hearing from the neighbors.
And I have to correct myself on one thing. On the when I brought up the LED lighting and the turtles, that was confined to the E-zone basically area. I don't think the county instituted it on a on a countywide basis. So even though the turtles may not be able to see greater than 600 nanometer, you're still you have to abide by the county rules, which that's not us, that's the county.
Just one other quick caveat, besides checking on the turtle lighting situation with the county and such, is be cognizant that the salt content in our air here is some of the highest in the world. And so with respect to your metals and things like that, you really want to be double down on that.
We have a lot of stations, Cocoa Beach is also another high salt area. We've got
Okay,
so
just
we're cognizant.
okay, just
Best of luck.
And also a big thing for neighborhood, you talked about your stormwater trash, containers, dumpsters, as far away from the homes as in terms of looking at your site. That's a huge thing. Right, but it's just, yeah.
I just want to make one comment, even though I'm the engineer and I really shouldn't be making this comment because I have no business doing it. I just wanted to say that from a marketing standpoint, I think you had mentioned something about loitering and late at night and people coming out to the bar and all that. The one point I wanted to make is that
They posted.
due to the fact that it's company owned and operated, that makes a huge difference in that, because typically where you have the loitering and all that type of stuff at night is when you have a dealer's type station. I don't know if you're familiar with that, when you basically have a station you're renting out to a third party. But because it's company owned and operated, they will control that.
Well, and like the Sunoco station on Mason, I mean, they have posted it's just being aware that those are problems and posting whoever owns it and things like that and working with the police.
They will have a management there that works for Sunoco, and they will control the loitering.
good. And then we have a Sunoco number we can call in case we have a complaint. So, okay, very good. Anything else we need to do with the gentleman, Reed?
No, I think
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Reed, back to the parking.
All right. This agenda item number 6.
Yes.
This is a discussion item for parking on Main Street. And the question number 1 was, what are the parking requirements that we have currently? This is RDB2 zoning for Main Street, and from Hollywood all the way to the pier, you have that zoning. There's a picture here. Let me have that pulled up for a second, please. Thank you. So along Main Street, both sides, that zoning has a provision that says that you're not required to have the parking there.
You are not required.
You're not required to have any on-site parking. So in other words, it's saying you certainly can open up and not have to provide parking.
So is effectively that all of Main Street?
Not all of it. I mean,
Hollywood.
you from Hollywood to the river has parking provisions according to those individual districts that are along there. So
Parking provisions?
parking provisions that are based on the use that is going into that building, like you would in just about any other part of the city.
So this is Hollywood to
Hollywood.
A1A,
Hollywood to the basically to the ocean.
to the ocean, okay.
Yes.
But Hollywood West to the river, not included.
That's not included in an exemption.
How far
Okay.
north and how far south?
Just the adjacent properties are in that zone. There's some that are, contiguous together, but
That's what that darker outline is.
it's you got to watch the line, because unfortunately they changed the GIS maps on us, and now everything blends together. We don't have a very good color selection.
Oh,
It's
I read
pea
on it.
green.
I apologize, I'm still
Yes.
confused.
Okay.
From Hollywood to the ocean.
Yes.
Is there required parking for businesses?
No.
No.
From Hollywood west to the river, there is required parking for
Yes.
businesses?
According to use.
According to use, okay.
Correct. Thank you.
And you figure that one.
Yeah, well, that's,
No, why some and don't?
and my understanding is that in that area, problem with trying to put in a new building and have parking right adjacent to it, there really isn't the parking, so we can't get the new businesses, at least that's the complaint.
Well, I think it goes back to this issue of where is the public parking? How convenient is it? And how easy is it to find? And we fail in most of these categories in terms of being able to find something and not have it available where we need it. I think we've already said through the parking studies that have been done that there's adequate parking in the area if we put it in the right place and identified it. But, and had it available all the time.
That's three ifs. Well,
So, yes, right now, it comes back to the things that should be done in terms of management of the parking. It also means that there needs to be additional parking put in closer. And an example of where we took the employee parking lots for Joe's Crab Shack at the pier. Those are now under construction. 75 parking spaces, 20 of them are right behind the Main Street businesses. They look at them, but they won't be able to use them because they'll be leased to Joe's Crab Shack. We intend to try to cure that. We're not sitting idly by and just saying, well, that's that. I'd like to take the parking lot that we did create at 14 South Grandview and turn right around and make that public parking by relocating some of the parking to another area for Joe's Crab Shack, and we can certainly do that. Nothing prevents us from expanding the other larger lot to accomplish that, but it takes successful negotiations with property owners and money to do that, and we're intending on doing that because it's not just Main Street, it's about tourism and beach and the amusement rides, and there's a lot going on that needs to be tended to.
Now, isn't there a vacant lot and a property currently for sale south of the new parking lot?
On Grandview,
Yeah,
are you saying?
Grandview.
I'm not aware of one right now that's available for sale. So, but we have other lots over there. If we own some of the lots, and we have others that we've talked to about acquiring the property.
What's the large vacant lot on the corner?
On which
Just
corner?
to the south, farther, walk down that street, walk down Grandview.
Directly on Grandview?
Yeah. On the corner.
between
I'm-
Coates and,
between-
Coates
On
and,
the east side?
Yeah.
Wasn't that,
between Coates and Fifth.
Was that guy that was partners with George or something?
What's his
The
name?
ponytail guy that came to the meetings. I forgot
way
his
down,
name.
Yeah,
way
yeah.
down there. Well,
That's closer to
that's Jerry
ISD.
Nolan.
yeah, Jerry.
Jerry
Nolan.
Nolan.
Yeah.
What?
Huge parcels there.
That's a large parcel. It's not. It's one that we've actually rejected, in the past to actually buy it for over $2 million.
Yeah.
We see it as maybe just a little too far. It's probably good for the beach, and we've said so. But right now our money and our resources are going as close to the E zone and as close to the ocean side.
Yeah.
Between A1A and the beach as we can manage it. And right now we can't afford to buy the properties that are available to us right now to accomplish that.
Reed, I think we should be looking at eliminating the requirement of on-site parking for businesses along Main Street. I think we should potentially even consider, if they're right on Main Street, not even requiring that they have parking, and let's fight for parking, around, or give them the ability to have it within a certain 1,500 feet or 1,000 feet or something like that. We've got to get more flexible with this in order to be able to get businesses going back there.
Well, we've already done.
More than
Yeah.
half of it doesn't require
Yeah.
parking
Well,
already.
I'm talking about the part there.
To Hollywood to the river.
Yeah.
The-
I agree.
Reed, one of the problems
I
we
mean, it's a
have-
main street. You know, you don't have to have parking along a main street.
Right.
At the Hollywood to the river.
It's something that,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
something that Paul McKittrick said earlier tonight is go back to the E-zone and the plan and the strategies in there for looking at the parking and how we do it. It would be nice to think that phase one, the hotel goes in and we all go, yay, it's done. But we're not, this is about being flexible, about looking at opportunity and when we can accomplish some of the other strategies that are in there, that we do that. This idea of bike week and everything else that we're trying to do is about transition and time. So, but follow the plan. Because if you keep following the plan and stay committed to trying to accomplish that, then you can see that end result that we're looking at. But don't expect everything to happen right away, right? And I would say that it is the sensitivity of exactly where is the most important part to put the parking. And I think we have been
But
evaluating.
see, yeah, we're trying to put in the parking before we get the business, okay? And, you know, we don't have the money to go out and get all that parking, all right? We have some money, but, you know, it's not jumping in there. We're building lots for Joe's Crab Shack and such. But if we allow a business to come in and we start to get some businesses going, then maybe they will have the incentive to help get more parking and can afford to do it. Teresa, am I crazy?
I think it's one of the things you have to do is you have to get better identified real parking in the right places. And part of that strategy about this about the buying the land, the real estate, and what you do to get there is that there's a lot of real estate that needs to be assembled to make these other businesses viable to come in here and help all of us. And what we intend to do is go in there, acquire the properties that or have others do this. Doesn't have to be the city. To assemble some of the property, use it for surface parking now. Keep planning for the parking structures, public parking structures that should be there. They're identified. And there's nothing that should prevent us from looking at in the future when we have a more clear picture of funding, you know, where's the cash flow to pay for it, to go for it. And I think we've said over and over again, it is not just a city issue here. It's about the county, the city,
Absolutely.
joining together on this and finding resources other than out of the CRA's pocket to accomplish all of this.
And the businesses.
And the businesses, and that brings back just how we participate in that, and we haven't come that far. There's supposed to be, if you're in that E-zone, some organizational group that's going to be a party to this. None of that has been discussed or started yet, and quite frankly, in this year's budget, the E-zone manager is out. There's a lot of things that are stalled for now and aren't going to happen.
I dare to say that we're attempting to be the de facto E-zone group, okay, to get something moving out there. I've been in touch in the last few days with the Ocean Center and the parking issues to ask what's going on and why and how do we get going, and the response back was, you need to talk to Frank Bruno and Jim Deneen, okay? Because there's no answer as to why we can't have that as full-time public parking for all purposes, including the Ocean Center.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think there's a reason why it can't be that way. And we can all have access to it, we can all benefit from it. And then what you're talking about is it's the chicken or the egg. You're trying to say, let's build the parking and they will come. I'm saying, put the business in and the parking will come.
See, I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you on that.
Okay.
Because as a business owner, my first thing is okay, I want customers, where are they gonna park? So if I was gonna go to open a business on Main Street, the first thing I'm gonna say is where are my customers gonna go? So if there's public parking in that area, I'd be more inclined to open a business, because you're there in that historic district. It's not like you can go in and rent a building and tear everything down around you to put a parking lot up, because you have a historic building. So the parking, you actually have to have the parking, the idea of the parking and where it's gonna be before you open the business. At least that would, if somebody came to me with a business plan and said, okay, I wanna open this business and I hope I'm gonna get parking,
No, it's not, I hope I'm going to get parking. If you're coming in and you're opening, look over on, our other areas that are successful. You got Del Rey, Park Avenue and Winter Park, all these places. They don't have their parking at their site.
And that was gonna be the next thing I was gonna say. One of our big problems is, we've got parking, and even on Main Street, there's a lot of public lots, surface lots back there. I have people that come in and they ask me, how are you supposed to get into the parking garage? We don't direct them in properly.
Our signage is the pits, that was.
Okay, just to be blunt about it. The other problem is we have all these paid lots. Why we have paid metered parking with our city lots when the county doesn't charge for their lots, I have no idea. But you have all these metered lots and there's nowhere for anybody to get changed to put money in the meters. So I've got people that run back and forth from Ocean Avenue and they come from all over the place. And not only that, I don't know is it still Central Parking that has?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know they do not take ATM or they do not take debit cards or credit cards in their parking garage? They only can pay cash.
Wow,
So
isn't it?
you have people, they pull out to pay, then they go to hand them their debit card or their credit card, say, oh, we don't take that. They have to back up into a parking space, run over, which to me is fine, because I have an ATM and I make money off of it, but it's a great inconvenience to the customer. So there's no place for them to get change, because they only take, for the meters, to get into the parking garage, and they can't pay unless they have cash. And if they can actually figure out how to get to the metered parking or into the parking garage. So I think we have to improve signs. We have to figure out a way for them to be able to do, in this day and age, how many people turn around with a bunch of cash or a bunch of coins?
Dino.
By the way, I ditto everything, but I wanted to also throw out another idea. In addition to the surface lots that apparently I heard for the first time that the county had originally agreed to allow us to use. When the county garage first opened up, and Big John's behind it, I'm sure he remembers, but there was they were required to provide a trolley service to the area businesses. And then somehow, and I remember Ken Fisher doing it, and it lasted for a couple of years, and then suddenly it's just stopped. And I don't know what happened with that. But yeah, well, I know it had to deal with money, but we were told when it first happened that they were required to, or they would lose federal funding, and then how, the federal funding, and then and I don't know like how that went away, but it was nice to it was convenient for the people using the parking garage to not just go to Ocean Walk, but to actually be driven to different places,
From the intermodal.
Right.
I got a question, I'm sorry. We don't have a parking authority, right? No. Okay, because there was talk of establishing a parking authority. Central Parking takes care of all the monies collected. Does the city get any money back from that?
I handed out do you all have that now, this handout for Leah's parking that just came around? Did it move around?
No, Dave kept them all.
Dave kept them.
Dave, thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
Now
we have it.
This is the Daytona Beach Parking Guide. This is not something that's going to help as a directory to businesses, and but what it does illustrate what's going on with some of the parking on the streets, and it's a good start. It gives you some information.
Where's the boardwalk?
And exactly. Well, they again, they're not. This was done by our parking vendor, and so we need to take a stab at, and that's further in our discussion here later on. But before we get there, I wanted to just let you know that we do have parking kind of identified throughout, that Laz does have some of this. County has their own system. They're not the same.
I guess my question is, do we get a cut of the money collected from the meter?
And the answer is yes. And
Where does that money go?
that money just goes back into the general fund right now. And I can tell you that there's a lot of the money that comes out of that. I'd say the last time I looked at some numbers, I'd say half of that's probably from ticketing.
What?
Tickets.
Yeah.
In other words, the thing that drives your customers
Right, okay.
crazy or out of town, not to come back again.
Is there a way we can siphon that money off and start using it as a seed fund to start acquiring property, so we can get the money to get the property, to get the parking, to get the business?
I think there's an opportunity for Mr. Wetzel, who runs this for the city's side, to give you a better idea of what numbers are, how the system operates, and I would suggest that.
I'd like to know like the percentages.
Can we get that then, Reed?
I'll see what I can do to have Mr. Wetzel join us and share with us numerically what kind of goes on. He's also involved in something else that you talked about, which is making this transition to the technology that works. Sometimes you want a parking meter and you want it in front of a store. Sometimes you want those boxes, those electronic boxes, take the cards and all of that. And so those are actually going to come back in where we have the metered parking at Breakers Oceanfront Park. Because of some of the dynamics going on with where they're going to be placing some things in the parking lot as a part of Joe's Crab Shack and utility work, we're going to take out parking meters and put in these boxes. It's kind of a self-contained parking lot. It makes it more ideal. It's small. People can find these boxes, and they're very friendly to the technology, to credit cards, whatever you might have. And don't have to dig for nickels anymore, okay? I guess the other part of this is the discussion that I think Mr. Wetzel needs to probably go back and have and find out where they are at the county again, because they've had these discussions in the past but not recently, to understand where they're going with the management of these other lots. I mean, Mr. Wetzel is also involved in the Peabody and trying to make sure that that's operational. And he has parking problems with events when you can't utilize some of the other parking that's there. And it's frustrating to see all that sea of parking and can't always utilize it.
All right. Has it been made public yet where the city is negotiating with the county through the ECHO program for off-beach, beach access, water access parking? Is it south of Breakers Park?
I know that there's discussions that have happened in the past. I'm not aware of any, current.
Anything pending?
I don't know. I can't tell you.
It would be helpful for us to know. I mean,
well,
we're talking about 100 spaces on the ocean.
Sure. But right now, I don't know where that's at. And obviously we don't have the funds to do what we want to do, but there's a number of cities besides Daytona Beach in there talking about that issue. And would have to ask Mr. Wetzel to see if he can.
That would be great.
Find out, and so he can give you a bigger picture, because I'm not prepared to tell you, or without doing some research here.
I saw some plan where the city was prepared to march south along the coastline for Breakers Park to International Speedway Boulevard as an ultimate end game. And I don't think there's been any changes to that, has there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Reed, I have two things I'd like to consider going forward with. Number one is the prospect of altering the parking requirements along Main Street where there is required parking for a business. Either eliminating them or modifying them to be within a certain distance. And I'd like to get some staff comment or response to that as to why it shouldn't be done. Okay? And secondly is the issue of trying to work with the county and how best to go about that. You know, I'm prepared to call up Frank Bruno or Jim Deneen myself. I really don't think that's my role, but I'm prepared to do that. I'm sure other members of this board might do that because we're looking and seeing why can't we have that as public parking, accessible to all, that could turn into a money-generating revenue source for the county too. I mean, why can't we have those, you know, electronic meter systems in place there and it'd be open and accessible? And I think it would be beneficial to everybody, to Peabody, to all the Main Street and Beachside, to Joe's Crab Shack coming in and everybody. So we need to get that going, and maybe if you could check with Paul or the city manager and get back to me sooner rather than later, long before our next meeting, as to what may be a approach on that.
We can do that.
I would appreciate it.
I will say, I end up, Rodney and I do a lot of park vacations, national park vacations. The remotest area, there is a box, you put your credit card in it, you get the little piece of paper, and if it's not on your dashboard, you're gonna come back and find it, but it is so easy to do. It is so easy to do, and if they can do it in our national parks, we could certainly do it in Ocean.
Yeah, and the Ocean Center or
Ocean
the
Center.
garage,
I mean,
the
it
parking
is-
garage too.
Yeah,
So.
it is so easy.
Okay.
It's so easy.
Any further comments with respect to parking? John, do you really need to say something? 1 minute max. Come on.
You've got 5 grassed areas that you could convert to parking relatively easily if you work with the owners. Teresa's got a huge lot. There's a huge lot there on Hollywood. Just have the city come in, share the revenue, share the taxes, whatever it is. My uncle did it in Miami. It worked very well for the city of Coral Gables. You all can do it. It's 500 extra lots, parking spaces.
You got a deal, Teresa.
It's all Teresa's fault. You're not doing your bit in making parking out there, Teresa. Okay, moving on to item 8, discussion of strategic planning priorities. Reed, is that you to give us you've given us a little
Yeah.
memo there with some.
Yeah, I just wanted to spark some thoughts. It's kind of late to get any sparks, so I'd like you to start thinking about it. Maybe this is something that if you have anything to contribute now, otherwise what I would do is I'd come back with additional information, maybe ask that everyone start thinking about what they think the priorities are, and run do some formal survey.
Well,
if I could just get input between now and the next time.
Reed, and looking
Yes,
at
sir.
your list,
Yeah.
the public parking signage we've just discussed really sucks. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's something easy. We can get a plan in place.
Right.
Just go look at how they do it in Key West or anywhere, okay?
Sure.
And let's try and implement a similar
You don't even have
program.
to go that far. Go to Ormond Beach right
Go
now.
to Ormond, okay.
And just put in a bunch of new signs, that, believe it or not, I mean.
They're great,
Yeah.
actually. It's
Think-
so easy.
think of-
To the parking, to the city hall, the whole 9 yards.
And I would ask, we got to look at the big picture, but think of small, think of free, think of other people's money. Because that's where we're at right now
Okay.
in our budget.
But
And I
at
have a
least we
swill
can come
pen.
up with the, Reed,
Idea.
we can
Yes.
at least come up with the methodology we're going to use. So if somebody's doing it within a business and privately, at least we can emulate, okay, and get into one system and signage and such. The directory, why does downtown have a much nicer parking and business directory
I'll tell you.
than beach side.
You don't have a directory, and
Well,
that certainly is not a directory.
No, exactly. I say,
But let me tell you, and because Jason Jeffries, our project manager, has worked for some time on this plan. And what we decided to do was hire the people that do this in all the shopping malls around the country out of Tennessee. They're going to provide us these panels that go into the kiosks, and every 3 months they're going to change out. That product was created for on-the-street kiosks, and now we've taken that graphic that we now own, and we're able to continually update brochures and put businesses on there and get that information out. And I know that Mr. Nicholson, Teresa, and others have all shared some of the different ideas in the other communities. We know they're there. It's just a matter of setting aside the time to go get it done. Now we have we've worked something out here with this company, and I think it's inexpensive and easy enough to do that it's Main Street's turn and Midtown's turn to try to create something there. And we already have the kiosks. They're a little different challenge on those things, but I'm not sure how we get everything squeezed in there, but we certainly can give that a shot. And certainly get Main Street in. I don't know how we get A1A and everything else in there.
anyways, those two I think are on the easier side. I think the E-zone LDC amendment is something we can proceed with as expeditiously as possible. Okay, and that shouldn't cost us big bucks to do that. The ISB streetscape design, they have to come to us. We can't do anything about that, and that's a funding issue. So until you guys say there's funds, and the Visitors Ambassador Program, I have no idea what that is and what it's supposed to do. So.
Yeah, and we do have funds for the ISB streetscape, so that's really not the issue at this point. It's just really getting a contract changed and approved. And yeah, the ambassadors program, I hope we can get that thing off the ground.
What's it supposed to be? What is it supposed to be?
Oh, this is where you have just your volunteers on the boardwalk and somebody to greet the tourists and
Give
tell
John
them, hand
something
them
productive to do.
hand them the map and yeah, but it's something long overdue and hopefully.
Mr. Chairman, number 4, can we eliminate the word parking so it reads improved public signage including parking? Because it's not just the parking.
It's just, yeah.
It's the whole thing. You know, in 2002, Suzanne Kewen did an entire plan for signage for the redevelopment area. Beautiful. We had federal people in here. We did workshops. We had the whole thing laid out, and then we had political change. We had politics entered into it. And have you ever seen that, Reed?
No, I never have, so I'm going to ask
where
is that?
It matched the downtown uniform
Not the
signage with a variation to it, but it was a beautiful. God, we spent 6 months mucking around with that, and it's somewhere.
Do you know when that was, Gary?
2002, I believe. Just 10 years ago.
And one thing I would
Why
add.
reinvent the wheel?
One thing I would add to the strategic planning priorities, unless you're going to update us tonight since it came up last month. City of Daytona Beach, redevelopment, future land use map, the riverfront lodging. That is immediately north of Main Street as a future land use map. That needs to change. So do the comp plan policies that say that, future development, and there are several of them, need to be in line with the future land use map. As long as that's there, that development is possible. And we have both the E-zone and both the Urban Land Institute, both those studies said one of the other main things to do is preserve the historic character of the area. And certainly Industrial Row is a major component. So that should be, to me, at the top of that list.
Yeah. We discussed that several
Yeah,
times.
I know, but it somehow.
If I could, I would just, if you have other things to put on the list, send them to me so that we can see them next time and all together.
Okay.
All right? And call me on the phone, however you want to do it.
Any further
Appreciate
comments
that.
on the strategic idea? All right.
Okay.
Update?
Shorter list. You've already done the Sunoco review. Thank you for that. The Space Needle at the pier, that RFP has gone out. I think I might have included that in your packet.
Yes,
Just
you
the
did.
RFP. Just so you know that there's an opportunity there. So hopefully get some exciting ideas back. So that was in part because of your actions and request to have that done.
100% to the Dino.
So,
Was that Dino? I know there's a lot of conversation over it.
are you talking about blame or credit?
If it's a success, then it'll be credit. If it's not, you blame me.
Mine are different.
You know, we've
Taxpayers end up paying for that, tell me how minor it is.
We're going to take a stab at putting out an RFP. We need authorization to do that, so May 2nd, we're hoping that is on the agenda. I can't guarantee it'll be there, but that's our intent. And then what should be there is a site restoration amendment with the fences should be going forward. And I think what you wanted to see is, back here again, is the fence standard itself. But I don't have that yet. But when I do, I will.
And by the way, just real brief, I talked to representatives from Joe's Crab Shack. Target date is May 22nd, and they are very excited about being, in the area. And I even mentioned the Space Needle thing and, and stuff like that. But anyways, they seem to be really on board.
They are. They are. We've had conversation with them that corresponds with what we understand.
All set, Reed?
All set?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any board comments? We'll start to the right. Teresa?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Actually, I have something.
All right, Timothy.
Really? Yeah, I never had anything to talk. It was mentioned earlier, but code enforcement is getting real. I mean, on the weekends on A1A, there are banners popping up everywhere. Outside displays are popping up everywhere. It's just, there's some of the T-shirts in the shops north of maybe I think a block and a half north. There's some really raunchy stuff in the windows. I mean, just problem stuff. So, what do you take a picture, send it to you? Or
No, I think it goes directly to the chief because I think this requires a strike force or something in their parlance. We need to have that dealt with because you're not the only person I've heard this from. The weekends are getting to be an issue, and the tattoo issue. This tattoo issue,
Yeah, I mean, and you cannot. I mean, it's almost like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday. And it's just everything just comes out. I mean,
You even have businesses that are putting, parking their cars and putting signs on their cars with arrows directing across the street. I mean, that happens on Seabreeze, that happens.
Oh, Seabreeze, big
It
time.
happens on A1A.
What's the deal with these guys swinging signs all over the place? Are we allowed to
Standing
no,
on the
you
corner, advertising.
You can't do that
that's
if it's commercial. If it's a commercial sign,
Right.
you can't.
It's off-site
We
advertising.
don't allow the animated signs. so-
No.
I'm talking about the guy outside the sign spinner.
That's a sign. The guy spinning that, that's a sign.
Okay, so it's still illegal, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
and they're all over the place.
There's a guy on the corner of there's a guy on the corner of Main Street and Main Street and A1A who's there
Every day.
That's our 50% off guy.
Right.
Every
Okay.
day.
Going out for business
Yeah.
for the last 17 years, yes.
Tomorrow I will go directly to code enforcement and see if I can get some direction.
He must have had a special waiver. He's been there for months.
Yeah, it's a special waiver.
Well,
Just a real quick let me jump back on the code thing for one section because it dealt with, heaven forbid, the noise issue again. But the Soundcrafters type event after Bike Week, I was not here by a small miracle. but my neighbors said it was so loud.
Yeah, they were gonna commit suicide.
It was so loud, it was physically painful in their house. I've heard merchandise bouncing off shelves along A1A. Okay, you're not the first, they were the only one. I asked Angela over at the Ocean Center, she says, it was supposed to just be a light show. We didn't know. When my neighbors called the police department and got through to the precinct on the beach side, how they got through the precinct, I don't know, but they got through the precinct, and the precinct goes, well, yeah, that's the noise from the Ocean Center, we know.
Okay.
Duh. You know, get somebody out there. I mean, they could hear it at the precinct. Okay? That's how, 4 or 5 blocks away. It was that loud and that bad. And, we had a serious problem last year, and they were supposed to know better. And they
yeah, they were
fortunately
gonna
shut them
change
down
it.
within about 20 minutes after all that happened. But it should never have happened in the first place. And I think the Ocean Center was a little hoodwinked on it from what I hear. But it was fairly on the horrific side of loud.
Force it inside. Force the sound show inside the
Inside.
Ocean Center. Believe me, it won't be that loud.
Yeah, it was,
No, actually.
it was,
As well, but outside on the front is where.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah, because I'm right next door to that, but yeah,
But-
inside, I
The-
sold a lot of earplugs that.
and likely it was the volunteers at the precinct, but still. Oh yeah, we know what it is, we know where it's at, but we're not doing anything about it. And that's the wrong attitude.
I saw a girl with long hair, looking into a car that was blasting, and her hair was blowing with the beat. It was so loud. Her hair was. It looked like as if a fan was turning on and off to the beat, and I was like, I couldn't believe it.
I'm sorry, Gary, you had a comment.
I think we are losing badly the maintenance fight on our beautiful new boardwalk. Not only is it dirty and filthy and with all kinds of gigantic flocks of crows in the morning walking around eating the stuff off the sidewalk, but we also have hundreds of broken and disintegrating tiles now. Now I love the cheerleaders, and they are terrific, but there were cars driving this morning, backing in and out of the band shell and driving around. It was absolutely incredible. And I don't know how, Reed, I don't know how we can effectively maintain, those are miles of
driving
tiles
pavers.
and all that stuff. But we're losing badly the battle. I mean, it's to the point now where we're probably half of it is what it was intended to be, but no more than half. And quickly we're losing it because while the Hilton used to be very careful in maintaining the boardwalk in front of their facility, they backed off in the last month too, and the whole thing is just sliding right down the hill. I don't know what the solution is. I don't know what the schedule is of keeping it clean. I don't know if you can elicit partnerships of the businesses. I don't know what to do, but we are losing a major investment there, and it's starting to look like hell.
I'll pass on. We do have Public Works with a more intensive pressure washing. I don't know if they also are supposed to go out there in the interims when there's been a significant change or a need to address it, particularly before a large event.
Reed, I think as much as you're doing, we're losing the battle. I think it's like trying to bail seawater. We're just losing.
I'll personally go out and look
When
at
I
it,
see
too.
these guys going out with the pressure washer, you're seeing a guy out there with a standard little wand. They make these things that look like a lawnmower that they go into, and they're much faster. They work much more efficiently.
We've tried them,
You've
and we've
tried
had
'em?
them out there, and I will tell you, the guy with the wand is very, very effective.
Okay.
With the right pressure washer, and I think
Yeah.
Dino would attest to it. You get the right person, they know what they're doing, and they'll get every piece of gum, everything off that they can. There's that tile stains, that lighter tile, and there's so little we can do. It's been they've tried everything, and without completely replacing it, you're going to have some discoloration in there and some staining.
That's okay,
Yeah.
it's the buildup of crud on top of it.
Right, right, and that
And
should be dealt with when it
And
it
Reed,
gets
next
to that
time you
point.
come down there, remind me to show you some spots where it's a trip hazard with the bricks.
Okay.
And one last thing about noise on the beach side, and especially, we are the tourism center. I don't know if anyone else last night, but I ended up calling the sheriff's department at 3:30 this morning because of the helicopter that after 20 minutes, beachside, he's going, I called, are they looking for someone? No, they're just randomly flying, is what they told me. He's just randomly flying to test the helicopter. Well, I would think if you're talking to the Ocean Center, you might want to talk to the sheriff's department that you don't randomly test over your population center, especially your tourist population center.
3 in the morning.
I mean, we're randomly testing the helicopter.
At 3 in the morning.
Oh.
Everyone set?
Unbelievable.
Reed, have you considered trying to stain those tiles with a concrete stain? A darker color?
That's a good suggestion. We could look at that. I think they've put so much of that sealer in there. We've kind of created our next problem.
Sealer only lasts so long.
It's in there too. It's
but-
just
Especially with the sea air.
I don't know.
we'll
try it.
Yeah. We'll see what else works. Thank you. Good suggestion.
Thank you. We'll stand adjourned. We didn't do the 2-hour meeting.